What's up, everyone? Happy Friday night to all of you. Hope you're having a great start to your weekend. It's GameFace time at Sifted Games on Sifted.net. And without a doubt, we have an awesome, awesome show for you guys tonight. It is wall-to-wall games, no filler, all fun. And we have a ton of stuff to get to. Otherwise, the show's going to run over, so I want to get to it quickly. But before we go, a couple bookkeeping things. First of all, football season's coming up. I know a lot of you do not care about football at all. But we have a fantasy football league that's been running on Sifted now for a couple years, and we're coming up on the season. We're starting to get our draft together, and we lost a couple players. So we are looking for at least 2 new people to join Sifted's fantasy league. If you're interested in fantasy football, or maybe you just want to try it out for the first time, last year we had a couple people who did it for the first time in the league. If you're interested at all, just at me through DM on Sifted, at Shane. Let me know you want to be in the league, and we'll try to get you in. Another note, Pactor Factor is going on a little bit of a hiatus. Pactor just left to go literally on a month-long vacation. And we did not manage to shoot before he left, and he is gone. He doesn't get back until like the first week of August. So Pactor Factor...
September.
Yeah, September, yeah. So we're not going to have any shows for the next couple weeks. However, we do want to take this opportunity, this little hiatus, to maybe think about reworking the show. So if you have any ideas on what you'd like to see out of Pactor Factor going forward, we have been doing it now for like 100+ episodes, kind of the same way we've been doing it.
No shorts.
Yeah. If you have any feedback on what you would like to see changed about Pactor Factor or things that we could do with the show, feel free to leave it in the comments on the site, and we'll take them all in and see what we can do with it. So with that out of the way, let's get straight to the show, because I have a feeling we're going to have to really rush through a lot of this stuff to get it down to our usual 3 hours. There's just that much to talk about. We're going to kick things off with a game that is on my fantasy team, Matt.
Yeah, I forgot about that, and it's still surprising.
Yeah. Valkyria Chronicles 4, which is a strategy RPG from Sega. The series has kind of fallen out of favor for the last half a decade.
No, 2 and 3 were terrible. So.
Yeah, and they were only handheld, right?
Yeah, I think it was PSP and Vita. And I don't think 3 even came here.
Yeah, I don't think it ever did.
2 did. I have 2 on the PSP. I think it was PSP, or maybe it was Vita. One way, it was awful. I love the first one.
Yeah. Well, the first one was heralded.
Yeah.
It was one of those games that was kind of a sleeper hit. People didn't expect much out of it.
Didn't look like anything else. Scouts were broken, but hey, it was still fun. And it didn't look like anything else. It had like a different feel to it. It was sort of it did new fantasy stuff. It was sort of like a fake... It's like a fantasy-ish, sort of almost diesel punky take on World War I. And I mean, I have a couple friends who loved it so much. Like one of them, it's his favorite game of all time. So there's a definite fan base for this thing. This one, I haven't actually played this one yet. I know there's a demo out where you can play like the first chapter and a half or something like that, and like the
Yes, I've been playing the demo.
Yeah, so it's like Octopath Traveler, where the progress carries over into the final game. But I haven't had time to play it. But I've heard that this might be a return to form of sorts.
So full disclosure, I did not play much of the first game. Someone else, when I was at Game Trailer, somebody else reviewed it. I think it might have been Mike Damiani, now that I think about it. So I took it home after he had finished reviewing it, and I played, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hours of it. And I do like strategy RPGs. It is a genre that I generally enjoy. But I have not enjoyed my time with this game, Matt. I have not. You're right. Like, they let you play a decent chunk. I think all told, it probably took 2 hours for me to play through the whole demo, something like that. You play through a training mode at first, and then you play through the prologue, and then you get to play the first full mission. And just so you guys know how it kind of works is you have a map screen, and that kind of shows you the layout of the battlefield, and then you can see all your units. And then you kind of decide how to deploy your units before the battle actually starts, where you want to put them, and then the battle starts proper, and you take turns attacking. But what's different about this from a lot of strategy RPGs is it's not on a grid. Mm-hmm. You can run and move anywhere you want to. And the idea of that sounds...
Like you have a limited amount of space, you know, like a
the
range.
Battlefield
you have a range you can run around in, but you're in real time. And I don't know if it's the same in the first game, Like you get a hit while you're running around.
You still can.
Like it mattered where you're using cover, where you were sending your character to be, and you could run out of basically you'd run out of move points in real time and get stuck somewhere real uncomfortable.
You can. Yeah, that still works that way, and I'm fine with that. I like that. It makes it feel more active and more alive. What I don't like though, without the grid, is that there's a lot of wiggle room. I guess is the phrase I'm looking for. Like, you have to drive tanks in this game, but the hit detection is really bad. So if you're trying to skim around an object, because basically with each unit that you have a set amount of movement that you can make. And so what you end up doing is you try to cut the corners and be as tight as you can so you're not using up any of your movement, because a lot of times what you'll do to avoid what you were talking about is you'll move into position, you'll fire, and then you'll move into cover, so that you're not stuck out there where they can just blast you. And so you want to try to save that movement meter as much as you possibly can. And so you try to cut corners. And what you find is that things that you think will give you cover will not give you cover. You'll bump and grind around objects that you shouldn't even be touching. You can see clearly there's like 2 feet of space in between like your tank and a fountain, say, and your tank is still grinding along it and kind of burning up a lot of your movement time. And so ultimately, after I spent a couple hours with this, I was like, you know what? I think I would actually... Now I understand why these games are built on grids, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Where you know that square or that hexagon that you're on is either in cover or is out of cover. Now, when you go to the map screen, if you are in cover or say you're laying prone in the grass, it will have a little icon over top of that character to tell you. But when you're out in the game world and moving, and say you ran out of movement, you don't know if you're in cover until you go back to that map screen to tell. And like you said, if you're out in the open, they're shooting at you all the time. That's the other thing that's different about this, is that most strategy RPGs, when it's not the enemy's turn, you take 0 damage. You're never getting attacked. In this game, you're getting attacked the whole time. Story-wise, again, something that normally pulls me along in strategy RPGs. I've only played the first couple hours, as I said. But the story in this game is really not connecting with me. You basically play as this young commander in this battalion of soldiers. You're trying to prove yourself. Your battalion itself is trying to prove itself. It's not really battle-tested. And that's about as far as I've got. But the writing is not great. The jokes tend to really fall flat. Again, it's one of those cases where maybe in Japanese the jokes are funny or the gags are funny, but when it's translated over to English, they're just kind of not hitting the mark. There are tons of cinemas. You get cinemas, and you also get the talking head bit with text, which is, again, very typical of Japanese RPGs. The graphics engine, if you can't tell, this game is gorgeous. It kind of features this pastel-y, kind of washed-out watercolor kind of look, and there's also kind of this grain that's over everything in the game. It definitely makes the game look unique, and I will say I've never seen a strategy RPG that looks anything like it. So to me, that's a strength of the game, although I think if you actually went like polygon for polygon against a game like God of War, it's not going to hold up very well. It doesn't have a lot of effects, but I feel like its art style does a good job of kind of smoothing over its rough edges graphically.
It looks a lot like the first one.
Yeah. And as you said, like there are certain units that are way more effective than other ones.
Yeah, like in the first game, like there were missions where you didn't even have to fight. You just sent it. If you had a decently leveled up scout, they could run so fast and so far that in like because like a lot of times in the first game, like the point of the mission, the win state of the mission was to get to a certain point behind enemy lines, not to kill everybody. And you just send a scout running up, and they'd move so fast, like within 3 turns, they'd be there, and the mission be over, and you get like an S rank for it because you did it so fast.
Well, part of this is kind of
now
like
I didn't mind that so much because like that's a choice of how to play. Like you don't have to play that way if you want to like grind out the fighting. And that's fine. I did that a lot too. But like that was a thing in the first game. Was like, if you just had a bunch of scouts, like maybe one guy with a bazooka, you pretty much were set for the whole campaign. Yeah,
even in the limited amount that I've played of this, it's kind of that way. Like a big part of this game, and now you're seeing the map screen. A big part of this game is taking over encampments. So you're plopped down on the battlefield. You can look on the map. It'll show you where the encampments are. Once you kill every soldier in that encampment, then you take it over. And then you can start spawning new soldiers from that encampment. And so far, I've only played the first couple battles, so I haven't got to the point where I really have to kind of put the game through its paces hardcore. But the way the game works is after a turn, everything kind of refurbishes. Like the enemies get some hit points back, and you get hit points back too. So part of the strategy in the game is finishing a turn with a kill. Because some of these enemies, if you don't kill them and then it becomes a computer's turn, literally their health will go back up like 70% or whatever. And that is part of the strategy that I've really enjoyed, is that you have each turn matters like big time. Like in a lot of strategy RPGs, like I'll just waste turns sometimes. I'm like, whatever, another turn's coming. In this one, you really can't do that. You got to try to finish off the enemies, because if you don't, you're basically going to have to tackle them all over again. And to your point about units, it's kind of the same way in this game. Like you mentioned the bazooka guy. Yeah, the rocket launcher guys in this game are really all you need, because like a sniper, their rockets can shoot a long ways. They can also shoot short. They can also take out artillery and tanks. They can take out cover, and it's like one shot, one kill. So they try to encourage you to use all these units that have like crappy shotguns or like a machine gun. It's like, why? Why would you use any unit but a bazooka? Because
early in the first game, it was basically because that's all you had.
Right.
But like once you were able to build up a full complement of the classes you preferred, like unless somebody got injured, there wasn't really a reason or you were forced to use particular characters.
They give you the full group of classes right out of the gate in this, unless the demo's tweaked.
That makes sense.
I don't think it is if it carries
No,
over.
I think that makes sense because you said you're leading like a battalion kind of thing. Because in the first game, you're basically part of like a ragtag group from a small town that's basically caught up in the war and decides to push back because they capture a tank. Yeah. And so it's more like it's basically like a bunch of high school kids fighting for their hometown and the defense of their country kind of thing. Like they're tired of being pushed around by the big militaristic empire sort of thing that's been invading, and they fight back, and that's kind of the story. It was a pretty standard, I must fight for my family and the people I love, but I don't want to fight because violence is wrong, but I'm really good at it, so I have to do it. And it's
they haven't got to that yet.
I don't know if that's gonna be what this is about. But the first game had a lot of the whole we just burned through like 40 dudes and 3 tanks, and now we're going to sit on a hillside as the sun sets and talk about how it's so horrible that war must happen kind of thing. So I don't know if they're going to get that far into it on this one, but
this one is kind of basically a reimagining of World War II.
Yeah, the first one was kind of like a diesel punk World War I.
It's like Europa instead of Europe. Like they just kind of changed the names a little bit. And obviously, you're fighting against what would be the Nazis in Germany in this. One thing I would say is because the map screen is really important in this game, it actually was driving me crazy. And I don't know if it's something that I overlooked or I just never figured out. I paid very close attention in the training, but when you're on the map screen and you're trying to select a unit to then take control of, for whatever reason, the cursor will not lock onto the unit. Literally, I've just swirled in circles around the units trying to be able to select them, and what I've had to do is act like I'm going to pass on my turn and then say, no, I'm not going to pass on my turn, and when it goes back to the map, then I can select the units. I don't know if there's something weird I'm missing, but I've not been able to figure out why the game does that. And because that is the crux of the game, it became very, very annoying. And I think, honestly, what bothered me the most about this game, based on the limited parts that I played of it, was that it is so slow. Like, you see the battlefield, and the map helps a ton. You know exactly what you need to do. You know what units need to go where, you know what units need to attack, which units need to sneak around the side to capture something. But then trying to actually execute that plan is, like, excruciating. It's just not a streamlined game, I guess is the best way I could put it. It just feels archaic and old. And maybe the first game was that way, but
First game probably wouldn't have felt as much that way because it was
so long ago.
God, that must have been almost 10 years ago.
Right. It's been quite a while. And things have changed. Like, even with strategy RPGs, they've been honed and polished to a fine sheen at this point. And I feel like in a lot of ways, this is kind of a throwback. And keep in mind, I'm saying all this about a game I drafted in my fantasy team, and I hope that it ends up reviewing very well, and it very well could.
I think it will. It feels like I haven't seen it firsthand, but it does feel like it's going back to the drawing board that 1 sort of established. Because like,
Oh, it's very much like the first one.
But like 2 had a whole thing. I mean, it still played the same, but like in terms of like the moment to moment, like strategy stuff. But 2 was a prequel, and it wasn't really during the war. It was like a military academy, and it was like kind of almost like more like a high school drama game that happened to have like really inconsequential strategy sequences. And like if I remember right, it was like the same like 10 to 20 missions over and over, because they were like academy, like training missions basically, and like you just had to grind them out over and over to get like, your characters up. And it was not a good scene. It was also they shrank the scope a lot. Like it wasn't like, you get a pretty large force in each battle on these, and I think they cut that like in half or something.
Well, now with
and like
the
that's kind of
encampments,
part of the appeal of
Yeah.
the first game, at least, was like you had this big force and you could you do mixed unit tactics and stuff. That's one of the things I always liked more about stuff like Fire Emblem and Shining Force, was that you had you had 8 to 12 characters on your side, and you could really build a force that had different classes and work together, and you could split your force and do different things. Whereas like something like I never liked Final Fantasy Tactics very much, because you have 5 characters and that's it, and you can't really do much with that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of part of the appeal. But when you shrink that down to the portable system, it lost something. And then 3 I never played because it never came here, and it got panned even harder in Japan than 2 did. So I am hoping this, and then there was another one, like a Valkyria game that was like a spin-off or something, came up for PS4 like last year or something, and just got leveled in the reviews. It was, I have that, but I never opened it. So I love the first one. I just sort of been waiting for this series to finally figure itself out again. I was hoping this one might be it, but it sounds like I got to download this demo now.
Well, here's the thing too: is that all the tools that you would need for a great strategy RPG are there. Like, for instance, all the enemies have weak points, like the tanks. You can see right now. See that blue thing on the back? Like, that's its weak point. But it also kind of makes the game absurd, because what I found myself doing was just running my whole party in behind the tank, leaving the bazooka rocket launcher guy out front so he could attack it from the front, and then all the people with just the normal guns would stay in back and just shoot the blue box.
I mean, that's not wrong in terms of, I mean, that's standard, standard flanking tactics.
It was just silly. It's like you see like 5 people standing behind this tank, and then the one guy in front shooting it with rockets. I don't know. Maybe I had not played enough of the first game to know that it was like this, but the first game to me did not feel this cumbersome and grinding as this one does.
There is a lot of grinding in the original. I mean, it's if you don't enjoy the actual strategy gameplay and doing it over and over, it's like Dynasty Warriors. It's like you better enjoy whacking things
Hacking
with a stick.
and slashing.
Yeah. But if you do like it, it's pretty much the only game in town. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't put it on the level of something like an XCOM 2.
Yeah.
Which is a different take on the same idea. But it's definitely its own thing. Or at least in terms of speaking of my experience with the first game, which I played twice, and and like what this looks like, which looks very much more along the lines of what I'd expect a sequel to the first game to look like, as opposed to the other ones. Like I'm not like what you're saying like doesn't like super put me off it, because it feels like a pretty reasonable reaction to the first game as well, I would say. If you delve really
But it is 10 years
later. It is, but I can still play Shining Force too.
Yeah, that's true. But
like,
I don't know.
It would be different if there was like a whole subgenre of Valkyria Chronicles alikes that I'd just been playing in the interim. But I'm hoping this feels like a return to form of a game that I haven't really played an equivalent of for a long time.
It just feels to me really clunky. And I feel like I could accomplish these missions in literally like 20% of the time than what it actually takes to do it inside the game. Some of the feedback in the game, like as far as like the HUD, doesn't give you as much information as you'd like. There's just lots of little things that started to add up for me that by the time I got to the end of the 2-hour demo, I was like, I really don't have much interest in going back and playing this. So look, you may be different, and the thing is you can go download this demo for yourself right now. In fact, I think it's on I think the demo's available for every platform, even Switch and PC.
Yeah, it went up for just about everything.
Yeah, so no matter what you own, you can go and check this out for yourself. You can play it this weekend, try to figure out if you think I'm crazy or not. I would love to hear your feedback because it did start to drive me crazy after a while. I'm like, why? I just found myself saying why a lot. Like every 10 or 15, I'd be like, why are they blah, blah, blah? Why is this game blah, blah, blah? Why did they set it up that way? It just seems like everything could be way more streamlined to make it way more user-friendly. And look, there are some people that may like that style of a game. I just personally don't. So
give the girl some pants in the snow, for God's sake. What's with you people?
Yeah. And again, I felt like the story and the plot wasn't really grabbing me. The characters weren't really grabbing me. The comedy and the gags weren't grabbing me. And so I guess I was just kind of grasping at straws to try to find something that I liked about the game. And I'm a big XCOM fan as well. The first XCOM I played literally for 100 hours and then played the expansion after that. XCOM 2 I still haven't spent a ton of time with, though.
Yeah, this one, I mean, part of the reason the modern XCOM works is that they've got that metagame kind of driving you forward through it, and this, as far as I know...
You mean the metagame as far as raising your soldiers,
yeah,
and the whole home base
and the whole home base, and developing your equipment between, you've got a reason to keep moving and kind of going around the things keep popping up around the globe, and you've got the Doom track kind of happening. There's a lot more happening to kind of keep you propelled through the campaign. This, from what I've seen, seems like more of a very standard kind of strategy campaign without that sort of layer to it.
Yeah. But like I said, you guys can go and check it out for yourselves. It's on every platform. You can download it. It's not a big download. I think it was 4 gigs or something like that. So even
I think the chat's saying that the demo's not on PC.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was. So PC is the only one that it's not available
Looks like it. It is coming out for PC.
It just hasn't been
doesn't have
launched
the demo.
Gotcha. But again, the file size isn't very big. So on Switch, I know a lot of you guys maybe haven't got a micro SD card and you're still working with that really small size. It shouldn't hurt you that bad. I will say this, though. I bought a micro SD card for my Switch during Prime Day. I just got it yesterday. It's a 128 gig card. Plugged it into my Switch, and it did its thing, and it has 90 gigs. I lost almost 40 gigs somewhere.
So the formatting, so it can do that.
That's insane.
I have a 256, I think, or a 200, I have a 256 card in mine, and I think I only actually get 235 from it.
So yeah, you lost about the same amount.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane, dude.
I don't know
Dude, do you know how much space that is? 40 gigs?
Yeah, I don't know why you need that much space for whatever. It might be reserving it for kind of copying and patching. You still need to put that data somewhere while you patch in or whatever. So if you filled that up to full 250 or whatever, you wouldn't have enough room to download a patch and apply it to games that were already
you may be right.
installed.
It's a buffer that they've
I think
added
that might be what the idea is.
I was like, wow, I'm glad I bought a 128 gig card. If I bought a 64 gig card, which I almost did, I would have had 20 gigs. That's insane.
Yeah, it must be reserving a partition in there for some kind of usage.
It's odd. Anyway, that's it for Valkyria Chronicles 4. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about probably the biggest story of the week. No, it's definitely not.
It was definitely the loudest story.
The loudest. It's the one that generated the most discussion, the most heated discussion, the most social media action probably amongst gamers. And that is that IGN's review for Dead Cells ended up being plagiarized. Mm-hmm. It was penned by a new employee who had just started working.
New-ish. She'd been there 9 months or something.
Had it been 9 months?
From what I read, the reaction.
I remember when Jose left.
Well, yeah, that was a while ago because the reaction.
Was that 9 months ago when he
something
left?
Something like that. The reaction that I was reading online was it was split between people who were freaked out about the review and people who are like, does this mean they'll fire him? And that Nintendo was it Nintendo voice chat, I think is there were a bunch of people that were didn't like this guy on that, and they were hoping that this would get rid of him so they could get a new host on the Nintendo. I'm like, that's cold.
That is cold.
No, I think what I was reading they were talking about 8-9 months ago or something like that.
Wow, I can't believe it's been that long since Jose left. So to tell you the story, to fill you in on exactly what happened, IGN's review went up, had a huge score, and then a YouTuber who had also reviewed the game watched IGN's review and said, hey, wait a minute, that sounds a whole lot like...
A YouTuber who had his name was Boomstick, and he'd had that review up for a couple weeks. Like he was one of the only reviews up for a
Right.
long time.
Yeah, and he saw IGN's review and was like, wait a minute, that sounds a whole lot like mine, started investigating, and sure enough, it sounded a whole lot like his.
Yeah.
Matt, how do you feel about this? Are you blown away that somebody would do this at, like, IGN?
I'm blown away that someone would do it for a video game review, period.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I've written a lot of game reviews in my time, and I've written more scripts for game review. I mean, more than I could remember. Must be hundreds, literally hundreds.
Yeah.
And first off, I mean, obviously this is a function of how long I've been doing this, but like I could write my own review script for something way faster than I could steal it from someone else.
I know.
Like, because then you're talking about like, you know, copying down this, because I assume there was no transcript anywhere of this thing, so he had to listen to it and.
No, he had to like listen to it and transcribe the review to then turn into his review.
And like it's just, I mean, maybe he didn't play it long, but that's the other thing is like it's a Dead Cells review, and I feel like you can get a pretty solid handle on how Dead Cells works in like an hour and a half, you know.
And we're going to talk about Dead Cells next, as you can see by the graphics. So we'll get.
But
into
it's
the
just
actual
like
game,
it just boggles my. It's like on so many levels. It's like it's a video game review. It's pretty simple. Just tell me what you think about it. You know, no problem. It's like a 3-4 minute segment. I mean, and I didn't read the text review because that was gone by the time I found out about the news. They already pulled it down.
Yeah.
But I saw the video review and I saw Boomstick's like side-by-side comparison, which early on is kind of like, oh, I mean, they're kind of like, sounds like any video game review. And then as they keep going, you're like, oh.
No, the farther it goes,
it was
the
like,
more
it just the
obvious
terminology
it
becomes the same. And the most damning thing about it to me, as someone who has written literally hundreds of these scripts, is the structure is the same.
The
like
order
the order of the, not just like each paragraph is about the same thing in the same order. Each sentence in each paragraph is about the same part of that subject in the same order.
Yeah.
And he's mixed the words around here and there, but like structurally it is just identical. And it's like, and I mean, look, I used to write most of the scripts on XPlay were written using the written like web review as the basis. Like you pay the freelancer, who somebody in house would write that review, and you as the producer would get the review, and then you'd turn that 800 or so word review into a 4-minute script.
Right.
And so, like, I'm very familiar with taking someone else's words and digesting them into
something else,
a script. But even when we did that internally, you were encouraged to make the script your own.
Absolutely.
You just want you just had to keep the opinions the same.
Right.
And like, it's weird because the opinions in the IGN review were voiced in such a similar way to the opinions in the Boomstick review that to me it was a giant red flag. I mean, once you got past the first introductory things in that comparison video, I was like, oh yeah. Like
you said this earlier, it's like he tried at first.
Yeah, at first it seems like he was rewording things more, and as the script goes on, he just stopped doing that.
He gave up.
It just started to be the same adjectives even. And I think it's the wrap-up paragraph has like, there's like a stretch of like 7 words or so that's just the same.
Like
it's
he,
just, and it's
you
like,
would think
and
he
it's
would
not
have
like
at least rewritten the conclusion.
At least use different like superlatives.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be 5 different ways to say like awesome, and you just said. I mean, it's not. I don't remember exactly what word he used, but like there were a couple words that are like, just the fact that you use that word is not a common word to suddenly pull out of your head, and like the fact that all these uncommon adjectives are all in the same place.
Use your thesaurus, bro. Like if you're gonna do this, like at least try to like cover your butt. Which made me believe at first that like, how could someone be so stupid to do this? And at first I was like, maybe he didn't do this on purpose, and it's just this crazy coincidence. But once I started like really digging into it, it became obvious. IGN fired him. He's no longer employed there. And then today, was it today that he issued his video?
Yeah, like right before, while you were setting up the cameras, I saw that he posted like a 5-minute response video, doing this, doing the usual thing for like the YouTube apologies do, where like it starts with him sighing really heavily and be like, "Wow, guys, here we go," and he's got like the shaky voice, and like maybe he was crying earlier, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like he basically says he takes full responsibility for it, but he did not intentionally plagiarize anything. And I'm like, well, which is it? Because you either take responsibility for it, or you say you didn't do it. Like that's two different things. And then he throws Jason Schreier from Kotaku under the bus, saying that like he wanted to kick him when he's down and like wanted the clicks from his name being popular because Schreier had a thing on.
He found that he had done it before.
He found that he did it before on a FIFA review from
Yeah.
like longer ago, like last year or something. And he's just basically saying like Schreier like made it up or something. He basically says that Schreier was just looking for clicks.
You can't make this stuff
and
up.
And then in the he tweeted was it Philippe? Was it Philip? Is his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tweeted
Or Flip.
Philip with an F basically. I don't know if it's Philip or Philippe. I don't know. But he tweeted like, "Here's my response." And the first reply, if you look on Twitter, the first reply is the guy who wrote the FIFA review that he ripped off, and he's like, "How dare you, sir?" Kind of, it's a slam. Look it up. It's pretty good. The thing that amazed me was like the comments on the YouTube video were full of people saying, "Oh, everyone makes mistakes. Yeah, you should have gotten another shot." Plagiarism, you don't get another shot if you're in a writing career. Like that's not.
This guy also has a degree in communications.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, he was. I don't know if he
At
was,
some point he would have been taught not to do this.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the.
I mean, you shouldn't
first,
need to be taught.
Other
not to do
than
that.
write for your audience, the second thing you learn is never ever steal someone else's work ever. So, what do you think happened here?
I don't know. I mean, I know.
You've been around editorial teams long enough to know the lay of the land and how it all works.
I mean, in theory, I guess I could think that he was up against a crazy deadline or didn't have time to play the game. But he did a live stream of it last week. He clearly played it at some point.
The game is, we'll talk about it, the game's hard.
Yeah, but like, you don't have to finish the game to know how, I mean, I wouldn't expect most people that review this game to totally finish it if they're on a deadline because how long this game takes to play is it's relying on two things: how good you are at this and how lucky you get with the items you pick up.
Yeah.
When you got here, I was actually on my best run of like the whole week. Like I'd gotten through like 2 bosses.
Did I ruin it?
No, I'm still on it. I saved.
Oh, okay, good.
I saved right before the next area because I'm like, I'm not tackling some new place.
Nope.
While
When you're distracted.
waiting for the show to start.
Yeah.
But like, but I feel at this point I've been through like 6 or 7 areas, and I feel like I've got a handle on what it is. I could write a video review script for it if I had to.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't need to look at anybody else's. Like I feel like I guess maybe he was up against a crazy deadline and just had to get it done, and so that was what he decided to do. But it's like, I mean, yeah, your editor, whoever's in charge of the editor, whatever, if there even is anyone supervising him at that point.
I think that's part of the well, let's talk about IGN's perspective on this. Do you fault IGN for this?
No, I mean.
A lot of people are going to. They're going to say, "Oh, that's IGN."
But no, it's not because because you can't like. And full disclosure, I have written some stuff for IGN in the last couple years, but like not for their review stuff.
Right.
But like, you can't expect an editor-in-chief or whoever, whatever you're calling
your reviews editor.
You can't expect your reviews editor to know the script of every YouTube review of something that's ever been put up. I mean, there's no way he would. But if you're the person doing this. Not the reviews editor, but you're the reviewer that decided to lift this work. Have you been on the internet?
I know.
Like, someone's gonna see that real fast.
Really
like,
mind-boggling.
and also, Boomstick had like 11,000. I mean, now he's got like 35. I mean, he like tripled his subscribers.
Exploded,
so good for him.
Yeah.
In getting something good out of this.
Well, look at it this way:
like,
his content was good enough for IGN.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody who read that Dead Cells review was like, "Oh, this is poorly written," or
I was like, "Oh, let's find out what this guy thinks about more things." Yeah. But like. He had like 11,000 subscribers, I think, when this whole thing, before this all started.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not an insignificant number. Like someone who watches that and reads IGN is going to put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they did. But it's like, and actually he did. I mean, Boomstick did. But like, I don't know who brought it to his attention or if he saw it himself. But like, the idea that you're going to do that and no one's going to find out in this day and age, in this medium, is ridiculous. So I don't know what I mean, on one hand, like I can come up with a theoretical timeline of how Philip ended up doing that, but I don't have any kind of explanation as to why he would think he'd get away with it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would say is you're absolutely right, and I completely agree with you that IGN, there's really nothing it could have done.
I think they did everything right on this.
You'd have to hire an army of like 50,000 people to vet every review in order to avoid something like this.
And they're not Nintendo, so they can't do that.
And you're right. Post finding out about it, IGN did everything exactly as it should have. It didn't fire him. They didn't fire him right away. They investigated. Once they figured out that yes, this is in fact plagiarism, they let him go. They took down the review. They're redoing the review. It's done everything right. Here's the thing, though. The guy's been there 8 or 9 months, roughly. We don't really know.
Something like that.
It's been something like that. IGN does not have an editor-in-chief. When the last editor-in-chief left, they never rehired the position. And so if you're one of the smaller editorial guys there, you're just starting out, you just got your foot in the door, you need guidance. You don't need guidance to have somebody tell you don't plagiarize. But when you're in an editorial environment where you do have a superior, you tend to mind your P's and Q's a lot because every day you're working to impress your senior editor in hopes that you get bigger assignments, you're reviewing better games eventually. When you first start out, you're generally reviewing the crap that no one else wants to review. Yeah. So when you're in an environment where you have an editorial leader, you're working to impress that person all the time. And I feel like if this guy were in that environment, he probably wouldn't been quite as apt to be so blatantly deceptive.
And also just like not, I mean, maybe if you're in that, if you're on the, because you
also got to remember, IGN has cleaned out everybody.
Oh, yeah.
All the leaders of IGN editorial are gone. Marty Sleva just left. There's like a couple guys that left like a few months ago over kind of the whole sexual harassment thing that was going on there. There's no real editorial leadership there. Most of the people that are left there are on-camera guys who have been around long enough to know better and could probably lead an editorial team, but that's not their job.
Well, you wonder, like, if you're on the inside of that, because I've only done, like, contract stuff for them. If you're on the inside of that, like, day in, day out, maybe you're thinking, like, they output so much content every day. Maybe you're thinking, like, oh, no one's ever going to notice, like, no one's paying attention to individual stuff enough to see it, because internally you're not. You can't keep up with everything everyone's doing, so how could anyone else?
But I also have the data. And you can see, if you work at IGN, I guarantee, I mean, our biggest reviews at Game Trailers would do, I think my review for GTA 4 ended up doing like 6 or 7 million views or something like that. So you can imagine the type of numbers that IGN does for its reviews. Even, I'm guessing, that Dead Cell review probably did like 200,000, 300,000
just
views.
In the short time it was up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you see that. If you work on the editorial team every week at your editorial meeting, you're looking at numbers because you're trying to figure out how to maximize your time to make sure you're getting the most views possible out of every piece of content you create. At least with my editorial teams, I would bring all that data into the meeting. I'd show them. Because telling them is one thing, showing them is another. If you're going to, because people come to you and say, hey, Shane, I want to review this really obscure game. And it's like a 30-hour game. And I would say, is that worth your time? And they'd be like, well, I think it's a really cool game and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but is it worth your time? Because we can get a freelancer to do that. And I can have you working on something else that's going to do more views than that. And if they fought back, I just pull out the data. And I'll be like, okay, what game would you compare this game to? Okay, whatever, this game. I'd show them, okay, well, that game so far has done like 40,000 views total across everything we've ever published for it. And then they're like, I get it. Okay, let me move on to something else. But if you don't have that person in charge that you're constantly interacting with on a day-to-day basis, and you go into this big meeting every week where you're pining to review a big game and maybe fighting to review a big game.
Although I would argue that Dead Cells is a pretty big game.
I mean,
certainly. I mean, obviously that's sort of in contrast in light of how this summer has gone schedule-wise, but it's also a big. I mean, he's running the Nintendo beat, so it's focused on Switch stuff. Switch stuff is mostly just ports right now.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, I don't feel like you need a supervisory situation to know that this is not a solution to whatever your problem is. I always think of it's an episode of the X-Files called Fallen Angel from the first season, where I think it's Fallen Angel, where Mulder meets a guy named Max from NICAP. It's an enthusiast UFO hunting organization, and he knows who Mulder is, and he's like, "Oh, I read your article in whatever magazine about this and that," and Mulder says, "Oh, I published that under a pseudonym. I don't know." He's like, "Yeah, F. Luder. It's a FM Luder, it's an anagram for F. Mulder. Like, you didn't think that would fool us, did you?" And Mulder says, "I guess I didn't really think anybody was paying attention." And Max says, "Somebody's always paying attention, Mr. Mulder."
Yeah.
And I have always thought that line repeats in my head at all times whenever I'm doing almost anything. It's involving the internet, especially. Someone's always paying attention.
And it's forever.
Mr. Mulder.
That's the other thing about the internet.
Yeah.
It's forever.
Yeah.
You can take it down, but it is never going away. Someone's always going to be able to dig it up through the Wayback Machine or Google Cache or whatever. But
anyone who's tried to monetize a video with Nintendo footage in it should know that.
And look, I agree with you 100%. I'm not saying IGN has any fault in this whatsoever. I'm just trying to figure out how someone could do something so stupid. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And look, I've had people working for me do some really stupid stuff. Like stuff that literally blew my mind. None of them have done anything like this. Like I had one guy working for me one time. I reviewed a Zelda game, and we had gotten it like a month and a half early. I had finished it. I was working on writing my review. The person came to me and said, hey, can I take Zelda home and play it? And I was like, sure, I'm done. I've captured all the footage. I'm just finishing up the script right now. Enjoy. That weekend, I get a call from Nintendo on my personal phone, and they're like, yo, bro, somebody that has your code just posted the entire game on YouTube. And I was like, what? They're like, literally, from the opening cinematic until the ending, somebody just posted in like 200 parts the entire game. And I was like flabbergasted. And the game had not come out. It still had not come out for a week. And this person put it up publicly and pointed people towards it. So I have had employees go total nuclear off the reservation, and I still cannot believe that this guy would do this. I cannot believe it. At first, I was like, okay, well, maybe he's a new hire, because I knew he had come in and kind of replaced Jose Otero. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe he got a deadline. He couldn't hit it. He was a new employee.
Yeah, I mean, he's new-ish. I mean, there's people that have been there for 20 years.
It's like I said, like a big thing in editorial is who gets to review the big games. I remember one time I talked to a girlfriend of one of my employees, and I asked her, I'm like, hey, seriously, I want to know what my guys think of me, because they'll never tell me that. They're always going to say that you're awesome because you're the boss, and they know that you control some things as far as their future. And I asked her, and she's like, they love you, but they say you take a lot of the big games. That was their complaint about me. And so what you're reviewing, what you're actually working with is a big deal in editorial circles. And so I could see where this guy may say to himself, well, if I miss this deadline, I'm never going to get big games at this place. And maybe that kind of played into it a little bit. I don't know, dude. I am completely at a loss. Again, this guy had a communications degree. I don't know.
And it's just, I can't imagine a deadline crunch that would have been bad enough that would have convinced me to, like, it's just, even if you
the
had
game is hard,
even if you barely played the game and you just had to kind of like squeeze out wing it off of like a couple hours, that's still better than plagiarizing the review.
Playing 10 minutes of the game and writing your review based on 10 minutes of that game is better than plagiarizing. There's nothing worse than what just happened. And look, the guy deserves to be fired. He made a stupid, maybe he's just not cut out for editorial, because if you get to that point where you are, and if this is hypothetical, but if he got to that point where he was like, oh crap, my deadline is at 8 in the morning tomorrow, I've played this game for 4 hours and I can't get past the first boss, I can see where that pressure starts to build, and he starts thinking, I'm the new guy, I just got my foot in the door here, and if I don't hit this deadline, still, like, if you get to that point and you still make that poor of a decision, you're probably just not cut out for the job. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. There's certain places where you just have to have some self-control.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of happened to me with Demon's Souls, where I got the review for that, to do the full, the web, like the actual written review. And
the pressure, by the way, on XPlay was more intense than anywhere.
Yeah.
Because you had those shows stacked, like a week in advance.
You had to make those shows.
You have to make that show. And so if you don't have that review in XPlay, there's a hole.
Yeah, you've blown up the whole episode. It has to be
rewritten. And the whole show team hates you because all the raps have to be rewritten. Somebody else probably has to jump in and produce an extra segment to fill in the hole. That's not the way it is online, though, man. Like, you missed that day, sucks, because you did have a content plan. And look, as an editorial leader, you would sit down and say, okay, we want to make sure we have content for every week. We're going to do this Monday, Tuesday,
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday.
But on,
it's not a deal breaker, though.
Right, but on Demon Souls, I played for an evening or two, and I realized I can't do this. Like, I can't get through this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and it doesn't work. And I hadn't figured out the Souls thing. A lot of people
nobody had yet.
And so I was senior enough that I went back to my boss, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, this game is not for me. Like, if I review this game, I'm basically going to say, like, I couldn't get anywhere. It's fucking garbage. I hated it. And and I feel like this is not what this game deserves. I'm not going to be able to give it, the review's going to be about me, not the game.
Right.
And so I was senior enough that they were like, okay, cool. Well, we've got enough time to like reassign it to somebody else, and they did. I never done that before. That's the only time I ever did that.
If there's one game where you would get the pass, that would be it.
But I think like if that hadn't been the case, and they would have been like, no, you got to do it. You got to do it. I would have. What would I have done? And I would have gotten as far as I could, and I would have written honestly, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Like I would not have gone and stolen somebody else's review. Like that would never occur to me.
Yeah.
It's also like I mean I pretty much have too much of an ego to steal somebody else's right. When it really gets down to it, it's like I'm still in my own head pretty sure whatever I crap out is going to be better than what most other people wrote on that. And that's what you got if you're in a creative
position. That's when ego is a good thing.
Yeah, if you're in a creative position, you kind of have to believe that whether it's true or not, or you'll never get anything put on the page.
Yeah, you're right.
You got to believe in yourself until you're done, and then you hand it in, and then you think about how terrible it was.
Well, or your editor crushes you and tells you that you're terrible. But
editors generally don't do that to me, but like I always expect it to happen every time, no matter how many. It could be a guy who's never given me a note in 5 years, but I still am like, oh, he's gonna hate that. Every single time I send something, I'm like, that was garbage.
But you know what? That's what makes your writing better.
But it was my garbage.
Right. Absolutely. It was your garbage. Absolutely. So. The answer, I don't know. IGN needs an editor-in-chief, first of all.
Do they not have
They do not.
Something like that?
You cannot run a site that large with so many outreaches and so many... I mean, IGN has so many little things going on. You need somebody there that's the rock that people can go to. Like, for instance, maybe he realizes that he's in deep crap, and he's like, I'm not going to hit... He had nobody to go to talk to about it. It's like if you're an assigning editor or you're a managing editor or you're editor-in-chief, you build the relationships with your guys and your girls so that they feel comfortable coming to you. So when they get in, and you like it. As the editor-in-chief, it feels good when people come to you and say, hey, I'm in trouble here. Can you help me? If you want, that's what you're there for. And I just don't think it would have hurt this situation if there were a person in a leadership position on the editorial team that this guy could have gone to and maybe averted this complete disaster. But one thing I will say is anybody who's blaming IGN for this, you're completely wrong. IGN did everything it could have to prevent this, which is really nothing. There's nothing you can do to prevent this. But
you can't know everything everyone wrote about everything like this.
But where you do have control is once it happens, how do you react to it? How do you solve the problem? And hopefully IGN, I mean, I don't know what you do going forward to try to avoid this. It's not like you're going to hire all these people.
But I mean, hopefully just like, hey, if you do that, we fire you.
That should be enough.
Like that should be enough. I mean, also like.
But you should have known that already.
Right. That's what happened. I mean, you get thrown out of college for that, high school sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, you get thrown out of school.
Yeah.
For that.
I mean, there's websites you can just where teachers can just paste their students' essays in, and it'll spit out anything that anything that like study sites or cheat sites or whatever. Like there's ways to do that now, which is like when I was in school, like that.
When I went to college, the biggest selling point from the fraternities to get me to join their frat was we have every paper. They're like, you won't have to do anything. We know every professor, every assignment, and we'll just give you the papers and you can just turn them in. And back then, the internet existed, but there weren't databases full of term papers where they could go and just do searches to try to find like matches. And that was what the frats all used when they tried to recruit me was, dude, you won't have to write a single paper the whole time you're in school. Like, because the frat had been at Temple for like 80 years. A lot of my professors
they had
were like
the locked file cabinet with like everything.
Exactly, they absolutely did. They took me up and showed me.
That was
like,
a thing.
Yeah, they showed me. Look at all these papers, dude. Like anything you can have to write something on, we have a paper, and if you don't feel comfortable completely cribbing it, just rewrite the thing. Like that would never fly now.
No.
And this guy should have known that this was not going to fly. In some ways, he was kind of smart. At least he didn't like take someone else's text he probably figured, like, what are the chances of anyone being able to, like, find this?
In the words of Crocodile Dundee, better than average.
Yeah, way better than average. So I think as we close this topic, I think you guys should just don't hang this on IGN. This is not IGN's fault. This guy was a rogue employee who made one terrible decision and then backed it up with another terrible decision, and then followed it up with a third one today by not being contrite.
Yeah, by taking responsibility for a thing he says he didn't do.
Right. Yeah, so don't hang this on IGN. This is totally on the editor. What does the editor do now?
I don't know.
He has to find probably a new line of work.
I would think.
Yeah.
Or he just goes back to YouTube. I mean, he came from YouTube.
And his YouTube channel probably grew by like 20,000 people too. I mean, that's the irony of the whole thing. So, yeah, don't hold this against IGN. It's not IGN's fault. And let's move on. We're going to talk now about the game that brought all this up, and that is Dead Cells. I've only played about an hour of it. I've been playing the PC version. You've been playing much more of it.
I played the early access of it. I've had that in early access for like 2 years. I may have kickstarted it. I can't remember. I either kickstarted it or I got it in like a bundle cheap a long time ago. And I played it for a while back then, and then I started playing it again this week, obviously when it came out 1.0. And wow, people wondered why this took so long. Probably because they polished the living hell out of it for over a year and a half. I mean,
you can tell.
There's a lot of love and care put into this thing. I mean,
this game has been getting sky high
insane scores
like
that I don't
9.7.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that. I think it's really good, but like the roguelite element is still annoying to me because oops, you died, and now you lost all this stuff. I mean, at least in Dark Souls I can go get my shit back. But you get the hang of it, and you figure out how everything works, and you get lucky a couple. Like the run I'm on right now. So I'm how long have I played? I've probably played it for 4 or 5 hours. I've gotten to, I think, 6 or 7 areas. That's not to say I've finished all of them. But I've got, the first area you can get to, I think, 2 different places, and they lead you different places, and then you get to the Black Bridge, which is like the second boss, but it's the first challenging boss, and that took me like 4 or 5 tries to get past that guy. And now
you got to do it all over again every time.
And now I'm in the area where past that, up in the clock tower, and I think I just stopped at I got past the clock tower. And I stopped before we did the show, right before that area. So I've been through a fair amount of it. I'm not close to done with it, I don't think. But I feel like I've got a handle on how it works. I definitely have my preferences for what items I prefer to find. And I feel like I understand how the bastard thinks, so to speak. And yeah, it's of the kind of the roguelite Metroidvania swarm that is hitting this month, I think this is almost like undisputably the best one. Both in terms of production value and in terms of like what it's doing and how well it pulls off what it's doing. Because it is more roguelite than Metroidvania. It's not, it looks like a Metroidvania when you're watching this, but because every time you die, you lose all your upgrade stuff, except for you can have upgrades that go permanent, which is more like you have this many health potions. Yeah. You can keep 3,000 or 6,000 gold depending on what you've upgraded every time you die, and that kind of thing. But you lose any cool items you've picked up, and you have to earn everything basically again. But you can pick up like Metroid style abilities when you beat bosses. So like when you beat the first boss, you get the ability to tickle little bunches of vines or whatever, and then they grow a vine straight up so you can climb stuff to areas you couldn't get to before.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah, it changes
like
and then you can get the second boss gives you this rune that lets you go to a daily challenge thing that can get you a bunch of stuff. There's another one that lets you you rub this little statue thing and you teleport somewhere. So that gets and there's also, I've seen these little sections of ground with a little rune on them that clearly at some point you get to destroy them or burrow through them or something because I can't get through them. So there's an element of that to that, but mostly what you're doing is every time you die, the whole thing is procedurally generated again, and everything's different.
Yeah, it's not the level design is completely different.
Yeah, and like there's like you're always going to end up in the same areas, but the areas will always be totally not random, but procedurally generated in a different way until you get. Usually, it seems like the ending of the areas are the same every time. Like the elevator will be in the same place, so like when you got to the end.
Yeah.
But like it's but it's very generous with teleports. You can see like the teleport rings in the B-roll here. The way this is the first real area. Like there's a beginning area you go through, and then you get to your first
Although it
upgrade
doesn't feel
stuff.
like a beginner's area.
And then like this is the first real area in the game. I can't remember the name of it. It's like I've gone through this like 100 times. And I can't remember the name of the damn thing. But basically, the way this works, like if you want to just burn through it, you can just run to the right. But then you'll see like there's little like pits with elevators to go down, and that's where you'll find like better stuff. And it's also where you'll find more dangerous stuff. And so it's kind of like you have to balance like how good do I think I am? How do I think I can get through these extra challenging parts and get better equipment so I'll be better equipped to get through the part later on? Or do I just want to run for the border and bank all my cells and keep upgrade? Because like that's my big goal right now is still working my way up and up. You have to unlock a bunch of items so you can then unlock the ability to start with a random melee weapon, which will be better than your starting sword you've had to stick with this whole time. And that takes 65 cells on top of all the cells. So it's like there's always something to work towards. And I think I don't know if we'll see it here, but eventually once you there's the thing where you have to tickle and climb the thing. At the beginning, after you die and restart, you have to run through this section where there's all these glass bottles hanging from the ceiling, and there's a glass bottle for every single upgrade you can get.
Yeah.
And it's like there's like 200 of them.
Know.
I mean, it's like the first time you see it, you're like, oh no, like that's so many things. But like,
one thing I will say is after you lose your stuff, it doesn't take that long to get it back.
No, it's like that's the thing is like almost every type of item is useful in its own way. So like even when I have my favorites. I love the turret based items that you can just throw down
favorites,
and do stuff. But like if I end up with like freeze grenades or like a electric whip or whatever, like I'm not unhappy with that. Like everything, they did a good job of making everything useful. I've just got things I prefer to use. And you
can be successful with pretty much anything.
Yeah. And I like the movement. It's it's fast. It's
the game
snappy.
Is butter, man. Game is butter. The combat feels so good. The traversal feels so good. I've not ever felt like the game was at fault for me dying, which to me is probably the most important part of a game like this. Any game that has permadeath, you better be on point, man. Because if you're costing me a death, it's going to cost me a ton of progress, and it's your fault. The chances of me firing that game back up again are pretty slim.
Yeah, and there's an element of like when you get later on and like they change a bunch of stuff up and like the thing, instead of throwing one grenade at you, they're throwing like a thing that splits into 3 grenades and like the sword enemies get a lot more aggressive and like it's interesting because whereas there is an opportunity for that when you start getting tagged by that stuff to think like, oh, now the game's just being cheap on me, but at the same time you see it's like, oh, if I do this, I won't get hit by that. It's like that. It's like there is a Dark Souls comparison we made in the sense that like, well, if you watch, if you observe, if you learn how something works that you're having trouble with, you will be able to get around it one way or the other. It's just a matter of being patient and being observant instead of just like being angry that you didn't do it the first time.
I just found myself playing this game like being very, very cautious at certain points.
Yeah.
Like there was a point back there you saw where I was like just jumping and just getting that one slash on that enemy at the edge of the platform. Like it definitely, and the crazy thing, like any game like this, the farther you get without having saved, the more pressure builds, and then it gets more and more difficult, and it's like this perfect storm to like screw up. And once I get to those points, I start playing a lot more cautiously. But the way this game is laid out, playing cautiously probably isn't the best strategy.
Yeah. Well, it's also not even an option in various situations. So.
Yeah, because you're just kind of tossed into the muck and the mosh pit at certain points in this game. And you have those moments, too, where you first come across a scenario, you're like, oh, I'm so screwed, I'm going to die. And then if you make it through it, that feeling that you get, you're like, because you just assume that you weren't going to make it. You're like, oh, wow, like, I did it. Again, I haven't played much of this. I've been playing a bunch of other stuff this week, but I'm going to play it this weekend. I'm going to dive in. And I don't normally like games like this. Permadeath games, for me, are generally just completely out of the question. But like I said, because once you do die, you do lose your stuff, but you end up getting stuff like every 2 or 3 screens, basically, you get something. And not only did it assuage sort of my concerns over like, oh, I can't die, or I'm screwed, it also encouraged me to try weapons that maybe I normally wouldn't have used. So in a lot of Metroidvania games, I'll find a couple weapons that I like, and I'll just kind of use those and get really good with them. You can't really do that in this game. You're kind of forced to learn how to use at
everything.
least whatever the arsenal is that they give you. So I wish I had played it more so I could talk a little more intelligently about the game. But
And I will say that early on I was definitely frustrated at places like dying when I thought I was doing well. And even when I'd get angry and kind of like turn it, I'd like quit out. I'd like turn it off. But then like I do a thing, because usually when I've been playing this, like the sound is not important, so I've been listening to YouTube videos or whatever, or podcasts. And I just quit to the main menu and I just sit there and listen to whatever I was listening to, and then like maybe 3 minutes later I'd pick the controller back up and hit play game again. I was like I'm like, all right, one more. It's got that quality to it.
But you're saying 9.7 a little too high.
I wouldn't go that far away. I mean, maybe in terms of like what it is, but like in terms of like putting it up there with like God of War.
Because you're saying that a large percentage of players are going to absolutely love the game, and I would not agree with that.
No, I think this game is going to alienate a fair number of people if they don't know what they're getting into.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who will buy the game based upon the high review scores and play it for like an hour and never go back to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this for everybody.
No.
Certainly if you understand what it is and you know what you're getting into, like it's one of the best examples of this kind of, because a lot of games attempt to do this sort of like proc-gen roguelite sort of thing.
Yeah.
Part of the problem I think most of those games have is they do not have the combat nailed down the way this game does. Like this
the combat in this game is like sublime.
Yeah, like that's why it works, is because even when you get killed and even when you have to start over, even when you start over with the basic equipment, it's still fun.
Yep.
Like it's even when you go back to that first opening level and you're fighting those original standard enemies, it's still fun, and they still mix it up enough that I still get caught out once in a while, just in that first introductory section, getting to the first, getting
There's
to
no
the first
easy
level.
parts of this game.
Like, whoops, I did the wrong thing. I rolled over here at the wrong time, and this arrow guy shot me, and now I've lost a third of my health. Like, and it can happen anytime.
It's not it tries to be forgiving in other ways, though, I think. It's not one of those games that relishes in your misery.
Yeah, well, it's also like it's not afraid to give you some real powerful stuff once you kind of have delved a little far in.
Yeah.
And the rewards are proportional. Like you get, there's those giant chests where you get stuff, but then you'll find cursed chests, and a cursed chest gives you very markedly better loot. But then it curses you so that you have to, until you kill 10 enemies, you are a one-hit death.
Yeah.
You'll die in one hit, and like that's a really interesting risk. But the thing is, like a lesser game would not make the loot you get worth that.
No, you're
right. This
right.
game does.
It would just say now you have one hit and you're dead.
Yeah, and not only does it give you better loot than a normal chest, it gives you 3 things.
Right. Yeah.
So even better chance of getting something that really puts you over the top, because like the tools you have to work with, the abilities you pick up, the items you pick up, are life and death. They're your lifeblood.
Absolutely.
Once you get far enough in that you're sort of off in uncharted territory, like that's all you can rely on. So it makes that risk reward thing not just like rewarding in terms of like taking the risk, but it really gets in your head about like, should I take the risk? And like a lot of times the answer is going to end up being yes, just because you need that edge for whatever's around the corner.
Yep.
And that's a tension that a lot of games never even attempt to make happen, let alone succeed at making happen. So that's probably one of the biggest compliments I can give this game, is that it keeps that level of tension at all times, but it never forgets to make it fun to play every second of the game.
Early contender for Indie Game of the Year.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I've only played like an hour and a half of the game, and I'm already kind of in that boat. I kind of agree with you. I think the scores are, again, based upon limited play, are a little bit too high. And purely because, and I feel like I can make this assessment after an hour or two, because you realize very quickly that this is the type of game that's going to turn a lot of people off. And I think when you get up above the 9.5, you're basically saying the vast majority of people who play video games are at least going to find some enjoyment out of this. And I think there's a big section of gamers who will not have much fun with this game.
Or at least won't understand
Right.
what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Like, it does kind of assume that you understand how these types of games work.
Yeah.
It definitely assumes you played Dark Souls.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, just in the sense of how important the dodge roll is.
Yeah.
But like overall, like yeah, it's of these games. Well, they've got. There's another one coming out next week. There's another Metroidvania roguelite game coming. You met. It was like a trailer at one point.
Oh, it was our trailer of the week last week, wasn't it?
A couple weeks ago, at some point. Yeah, and I hadn't really heard of it. It's like Death's Gambit or something like that.
It,
like
yeah.
that looks good. But I don't know.
That game's a straight up like Souls clone.
Right. Will that be
2D.
able to top this? I don't know.
We'll
the
see.
other thing I would say is
If Below ever comes out.
well, that's not even on the docket right now. But like
that's gonna happen.
The game's pretty funny. They get a surprising amount of personality out of a character with no head.
Yeah.
So that's also there. That's also there. You know, it's not a lot of dialogue in the game, but periodically, like there's something fun. He says something funny, or he reacts to something in an amusing way. So like it's got some personality to it beyond just the hard as nails roguelite action.
And I would also say, everybody knows, obviously, who watches GameFace, I am not the world's biggest Dark Souls, Demon Souls fan.
No.
And yet I am enjoying this game so far. So if you're like me and you're like, I hate those games and this sounds like one of those games, I'm enjoying it. So maybe that does kind of show that maybe it transcends a little bit beyond the crowd that maybe wouldn't normally enjoy games like this.
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely probably what does that even mean? I would say it's probably the best example of this kind of game.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of that 2D soul, we've been influenced by Dark Souls and roguelites to make sort of this, I don't think...
You just said roguelite. You got roguelite and roguelikes in one word.
It's not a roguelike. It's a roguelite.
Light, yeah.
But like if you are vaguely interested in that kind of subgenre, and if you don't like this one, you're probably not going to like any of them.
No,
I'd put it that way.
that's a good way to put it. So maybe, if anything, this is a game that you can experiment with to try to figure out if the genre's for you.
But definitely, look. I mean, it's not cheap. It's $25.
Yeah.
I would definitely look at YouTube videos to kind of try, because that's the thing about this is you can't really spoil it because it's going to be different when you play it.
Right. Yeah. There's no strategy guide for this.
So I would definitely watch YouTube videos and maybe some streams or something to kind of see if you're not sure, to kind of get your head around it and see what you think. See what you think you'd think. So I wouldn't make the decision lightly, because it is not, just a $9 game or something. It's $25. But I do feel like $25 is you get your money's worth if you end up liking the game, for sure.
Yep. All right, let's move on. What we're going to do is with this next category is completely blow this episode out of the water for YouTube with YouTube flags, because we are going to show you the gameplay for Red Dead Redemption 2. And yes, Rockstar is just like Nintendo. It flags all its footage on YouTube. So if you're watching this episode on YouTube, you're about to see a big black bar go up across the screen. But for those of you watching live and those of you watching early on Sifted because you're a patron or a subscriber, we're going to show you the first ever gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2. Was it everything you hoped, Matt?
It was everything I expected.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you remember or not. We talked about Red Dead on the show 3 episodes ago, and all the information that's in this trailer had been leaked. So what I think happened was whoever leaked that information had seen this trailer.
Yeah, or
because literally
perhaps cut this trailer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or cut it. Because it literally exactly everything we talked about 3 or 4 weeks ago about this game is what's shown off in this trailer. However, seeing it in action is a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't tremendously impressed by this.
Really?
Visually, I am.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, they've got this narrator sort of talking about.
They always do this.
Yeah, but like.
They always do.
There's a weird amount of lack of self-awareness on this, because like when she says like, and gameplay, I think right here she says like gameplay like you've never seen before, and it shows a guy shooting someone in slow motion. I'm like, that's the whole premise of the series.
That's
like,
been around forever.
Like at no point. Here's the thing. It's like the presentationally, it's amazing. Like this, visually, it's amazing. Obviously, the animation's incredible. Like I like the camp thing they're talking about, but there's nothing in this trailer that I haven't done before in a game.
Yeah.
Like it's just put together slightly differently, and maybe the world is going to be more coherent.
But isn't that Rockstar Games in a nutshell?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Is like this thing's talking up about how like, oh, it's the most amazing thing and you've never done anything like it. I'm like, I just played Red Dead Redemption 1, and like this is basically a refined version of that.
Yeah.
And like I like, but they're talking about
camp stuff though.
The camp stuff is just going to be the town, but in a camp. Like the camp thing is like they're like, oh, talk to people to find out what's like. Yeah, talk to this guy with a thing over his head to find out here's a side quest to do. Like, it's every freaking open world game in the universe. But you have to like
feed the camp, and they're like, it's a little different.
Yeah, but I did that in State of Decay 2.
Yeah.
Like,
well, hopefully this is a lot less clunky than State of Decay 2.
I would hope so, but
I mean, Rockstar what it does.
You can only drag a dead deer back to a camp so many times before that gameplay element becomes a little rote.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Rockstar invented this genre. DMA Design invented this genre. But since then, since GTA 3, it's never really broken ground with its franchises. It just does it really, really well. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is what I'm getting from Red Dead Redemption.
Well, sure, but I mean, I like what I see. I'm definitely interested to play it. It's still probably the second most anticipated game on my release schedule, so to speak. But like, to me, that was just like the VO in this was just like, I mean, yeah, it's a lot. It's just marketing speak, like we see from every other major publisher, trying to make you think that this is the most like revolutionary thing that's going to be released this year. And I'm just like, it's just Red Dead Redemption with like gameplay refinements. Like that's all it is.
Much better visuals.
Oh yeah.
What I don't get about Rockstar is, and again, I've known people that have worked. One of my very best friends worked at Rockstar for quite a while, working on GTA 4. And if you ever hang around with them, like they think that they're on the bleeding edge of everything. They're very, very conceited. Like, they are well aware that their games sell 60 million copies. And they feel like they're ahead of the curve on everything. They feel like they're the ones who are the trailblazers, breaking new ground. But for whatever reason, their trailers are always like this. They are these weird things that are narrated by some person. It sounds like they have no idea what they're talking about. The first Red Dead was the same exact way, and they did it with GTA 5 as well. They do like these really long, narrated, very descriptive things to promote their games. And maybe they have done research and are like, hey, look, our games reach such a wide audience. We got to really bring it down a notch.
It's not like they do any E3 presentation.
Right.
So it's like this is kind of what that is.
This is like Red Dead's E3.
But even like with it's like, you've got unprecedented control over how conversations were and how you approach interactions with, like, yeah, but it's like, that's just LA Noire. Like, they just took the LA Noire conversation system and slapped it in a Red Dead, which is great. Like, that looks really cool. But, like, don't sit there and tell me, like, this is some kind of because you made that game before. Like, it's super weird to me that, like...
But it's still something that's not in a lot of open world games.
Obviously, I'm not someone who gets fooled or tricked by marketing copy very often, but I'm just like... do you believe what you're saying right now? Because, like... I ain't buying it. I would have had a much better reaction to this trailer if it had just been the trailer, but just game sound and just show me the footage and let the game's normal sound play, and don't have this weird VO actor trying to convince me that I've never seen anything like this before, because
I think that this trailer's for the jabronis, dude.
I guess
this is for the guys who just bought Madden.
Are they going to see this though?
They'll see it, absolutely. And Rockstar makes sure that they see it. I don't know if you noticed, but after this came out, every single social media feed I had this running in it. So if you've ever talked about games on any social media platform, if you've ever liked anything on a social media platform that was related to games, they targeted you with this trailer. And there are a lot of dudes out there who only buy GTA or Rockstar's games and Madden, who are absolutely going to watch this and just be completely over the moon because they didn't watch GameFace. They didn't read those leaks. This is made for a lot of those people. This is the first time they've seen the game. They've heard about it. They've heard that it's coming.
I didn't actually remember a lot of what we talked about with that leak, except the camp thing.
Yeah, we talked about all of it. The horse. And
I'm sure we did, but like when I was
raise the horse.
When I was watching this trailer, I was like, oh yeah, the camp thing. Everything else was sort of new, but it's like it's just permutations of what we've seen in other games and in other Rockstar games. It's fine. It's fine. It's what it should be. But
I am mega hyped. I think this game looks freaking awesome. I think
I am encouraged by the fact that this trailer does not at any point pander to the GTA Online audience.
Yeah.
Which I know, obviously, the online feature will be,
they'll do their own video.
That's their
about
own
that.
thing for that.
They'll do a whole separate video for it.
But it's always and maybe that's just me buying into the rhetoric from EA. But like, it's just like anytime someone wants to put out something that really emphasizes the single player features of something, I am in favor.
Absolutely. But we'll get another 7-minute trailer that just talks about the online stuff, which they should. But to me,
that is where the money is.
Absolutely.
In the long term.
Absolutely. That's why GTA has sold 60 million copies. I mean, it's not because his single-player campaign was freaking mind-blowing. But what struck me the most about this, even after knowing a lot of the information already, was the breadth of the game. And everything they showed looked so freaking polished. Like, it's basically 7 minutes of this spending like 30 seconds on each feature. And it's like by the end, it's like 15 or 20 features in the game, and they all look amazing. Like, all of them. They don't look clunky. They don't look weird. So
you're not expecting a lot of cougar people in this one?
I wouldn't say that. I would not say that. I mean, this was cut. Somebody frame by frame watched this to make sure there wasn't any weird stuff in any of the shots or whatever. So I'm not saying that there aren't going to be bugs or there aren't going to be issues with this game, but just the breadth of what it's doing, even if it is a little buggy, is still impressive. Mm-hmm. The horse stuff, I think I love it. I love building relationships with characters in video games, and it looks like you're going to have a crazy relationship with your horse that actually, as you're talking about with Dead Cells, you get rewarded for it. It actually shows in the game and the rewards that you get inside the game that building a relationship with a horse is a big deal and important. I also think probably they're going to sell horses for a lot of frickin' money as microtransactions because what's going to happen? Your horse is going to die. And you'd be like, man, do I really want to go find another horse and spend the next 12 hours getting him back up to where that last one was? Or do I want to spend $1 and just have somebody hand me a horse?
Take a page out of Star Citizen and sell horse insurance.
You can, exactly. But so, look, you're right. I mean, that's where they're ultimately going to make their money off of this game is with online and microtransactions. And there certainly is an opportunity for Rockstar to do some nefarious stuff with that. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll pull back and it'll take the high road. And
I expect them to go, balls out in that regard on the online.
Yeah.
Probably, I would say they haven't really been too bad with that kind of thing with the single player stuff.
But it's never had a relation. Like you never level up your cars in GTA. Like you get better cars.
You get better cars, or you could. Everyone had their own car in GTA 5. Each character had his own car.
Right.
And you could upgrade them and stuff.
Yeah, but its performance didn't improve. It was just cosmetic.
You could upgrade some stuff. I think so. You get like nitrous or something. I think. It's been a long time.
It's been a while. It's been a long time since
I only really upgraded Franklin's car because he's the one who did the race stuff.
Right. Yeah. But you don't build a relationship with your car.
No.
Like you do with an animal.
Well, we'll see. They still have to give us content that matters to the point that you build that relationship beyond just a stat game.
Yeah.
No, they can do it. They can do it, obviously, but it's like it still has to happen. Like a lot of stuff in this trailer looks really cool in terms of like a system that's implemented in this open world game. But the proof is when you get your hands on it, you've done it for 15 hours.
And it's just like if you watch this trailer, it's like really every 3 or 4 seconds it's a new clip. And sometimes they don't even reference the clip in the voiceover.
Yeah.
It's just watching it in this accumulation of stuff. They start showing these little games mini games that you can play. And
you'll notice but that's the other. It's like the oh, look, you can do this. Like, yeah, I played poker in the first game. Like, I did.
Yeah.
It's all still here. But like the things that interest me are like the fact that almost every shot, especially when a shot is not directly illustrating something that the VO is talking about, it's illustrating something about the visuals that you like that shot, like the shot where the guy gets thrown out of the bar and the fist fight starts. That shot is actually showing that like you get mud on your clothes when
Right.
you roll around in the dirt.
Yeah.
Or like when that was a little while ago, but he was just sort of riding through the woods and like or walking through the woods, and the real thing you're looking at is like there's like 40 birds flying around in that shot, and it's
Yeah.
like just the amount of life happening in these like forest shots are you know, so the most interesting thing to me in this trailer is sort of the way it subtly shows off little like the finer touches and the little details.
Like show the reload animations that are specific to each gun, and
even just the way his face flinches when the gun
Yeah.
kicks. Like it's just
Yeah.
you know, the very, you know, this is like Naughty Dog level detail.
it is absolutely in a huge open world game,
Yeah.
which Naughty Dog has never
My
done.
dog doesn't do. Yeah.
It's never done. I would love to see it try, but it's never done. So
I'm real interested to see what it looks like when it finally, you know, because even just the shadows are incredibly well done, and I'm interested to see what this looks like on like a vanilla PS4.
I mean, I honestly just feel like we're about to get something that we haven't got in like 7 years. There have been other open world games, tons of them, but nobody does them as well as Rockstar. There's a reason, besides just GTA Online, that Grand Theft Auto 5 is the best-selling game ever. There's just something about Rockstar. It has that special magic that it puts into these games, and we haven't got a new one of these in a really long time. And now finally seeing the first looks at real in-game gameplay, it lived up to all my expectations and exceeded them. So I am jacked for this game, and I have a feeling everybody else is too, and for good reason. They waited a long time to show gameplay, but I feel like personally that it was worth it. And it's crazy to think about. We just saw it for the first time, and it comes out in like, what, 2 months?
What was it? Beginning of November?
Yeah.
2.5 months.
Yeah, not far away. So here's the thing: the dam is about to break with this game. We got this trailer. I'm guessing we get a new one every 2 weeks now, maybe, and then in the last 2 or 3 weeks, if Rockstar follows its usual marketing plan, we'll get something new almost every day leading up to the launch. So the whole waiting thing is over now. The whole game's going to be laid bare. We're going to be able to see everything that's going to be in the game. And if you aren't excited for it right now, give it another 6 weeks, and I think you're definitely going to be right where I am right now. Ready. I'm ready. Definitely ready. And Spider-Man comes in there in the middle. Be able to play that. By the time I really wrap that up, here comes Red Dead Redemption 2.
It's supposed to be Here Comes Spider-Man.
Right. Look out.
Look out. Here comes a Red Dead Redemption. Here comes a horse you have a relationship with.
Not that kind of relationship. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something that happened today, which is, again, the beauty of us doing the show on Fridays. We get hooked up in a lot of ways. QuakeCon is going down right now, and it's going on all weekend, but really all the stuff that happened that matters happened today. They had their keynote speech where they kind of show all the games, and then the rest of the weekend is just kind of fun. Everybody playing games and stuff like that. Maybe a couple things will leak out the next couple days, but probably not.
Bethesda runs a pretty tight ship on that kind of thing.
We've pretty much got everything.
I also feel like in the wake of the Fallout 76 leak, Pete Hines has battened the hatches.
Yep,
a little bit.
probably so, as he should. But so Bethesda did do its big keynote today. It basically talked about 4 games, but 2 of them were kind of the focus. And the first one is Doom. The new Doom Eternal, they showed for the very first time today. Did you get to watch this?
No.
Oh boy. It looks freaking awesome, dude. It's Doom, and the last Doom was amazing, and all that stuff is in there. All the stuff that made the reboot great is there. But they've done, have you heard anything about it?
I heard about something about multiplayer, like people can drop into your campaign game and fight you.
Just like your favorite game, Demon Souls. People can invade your game. You can turn it on or off, so you can keep people out if you want to, but people can become a demon and enter your game. Would you ever do that, Matt?
like go into someone.
Be the demon. Go like say you see me playing and on PSN or wherever. Would you become a demon and come into my game?
Yeah, I might as well.
Yeah.
I guess.
I've never done anything like that.
I feel like you'd probably kill me because
Right.
I'm not that great at shooters.
But well, you'd be trying to melee probably if you were a
Maybe.
demon. I've never done stuff like that, and I don't see myself doing it in this one either. Like
I've always been interested in because that was the people. I think it was the people who made Left 4 Dead were working on a game called The Crossing for a while, where there were no. It was a single player game, like a Half-Life kind of thing, but there were no NPCs. All the enemies were played by people. Like so, like your team. So it would be like an asymmetric multiplayer game, basically. Like everybody, all the enemies are played by human players who are also in your game, and like obviously the enemies have like very little health. It's like they die in a couple shots, and the main player has like a lot of health, like you would in any campaign. But the idea is you're never fighting AI. You're always fighting people that are trying to fight you and outflank you and think. And it never came to pass. They never ended up making it. But I always thought the idea of like enhancing like campaign enemies by letting people come in and kind of like supplement that is a really interesting idea. And yeah, the Souls games definitely do that. Although I'm interested to see how they do that in this, because in a Souls game, when someone invades your world, everything basically stops. Like that becomes the focus of what you're doing, because
Right.
someone is there and they're the most dangerous thing immediately around you, and it's a completely different thing. But the idea of like, I don't know how they're doing this, but the idea, to me, it's very intriguing. It'd be very intriguing if a person was able to just sort of take over a random demon in your game, and you don't know which one he is.
Yeah.
And like,
Or a boss.
one of these demons is just way better than the others,
Right.
or
You pick him out pretty quick, I think.
or maybe you have the ability to command some of them, and like you can, maybe you're a little cyber demon or whatever, but you can tell the other demons where to go and what to do. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do to make it a more interesting scenario for the player. I don't know how far they're going with all of that. It might just be an exact duplicate of the Souls thing where somebody
So far, it
invades.
sounds that way. They didn't show the feature actually being used, to the best of my knowledge, but it appears that it is very much like the way Demon Souls did it. I don't think you're going to be able to have like 20 human characters.
No, I
come
wouldn't
in.
think so,
But even when I think about doing that, it just, I'm like, okay, so I want to be in his game, and now I select that, and then I sit here and I wait for it to load in, and then maybe it glitches out, maybe it does. Oh, I'm in the game now. Oh, I'm dead. Like that's what I think would happen.
No,
and stuff like that keeps me from doing it.
It starts you far enough away that that's not what happens, at least in the Souls games.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the Souls games do it is you're basically. I mean, it shuts off the area, so you can't just leave the area. But like, you jump into somebody's game, and you basically have to find them and kill them. They can find and kill you, or sometimes people are so good at hide. If you don't kill them in a certain amount of time, you'll basically run out of time and get booted out, and they still get credit for surviving.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you just run into people that are just really good at hiding and find a way to hide or like getting away from you. And of course you glow, like you glow red usually in those situations. And so like that is actually a really cool moment if you're on the other side. Is like, okay, somebody's invading my game, and you see like down across the way on like a cliff over there, there's the red player is just sort of running down there, and like you both see each other, but you can't get to each other, and you're like, okay, it's like, and there's sort of that moment of like you see the red guy, you sort of like go running because he knows how to get to where you are, and I'm like, now I'm gonna go. Are you gonna go and confront him? Or are you gonna?
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
It's like a chess game, definitely.
I mean, cheating is a problem, obviously. It always is with online stuff, but like, it's an interesting idea. I would definitely try it a bit. I would try it before I turned it off. That's for sure. And see what I thought.
Well, look, when I play it, I will leave it open. I will absolutely let people come into my game. Will I play in other people's games? Probably not.
Well, the thing is, like in the Souls games, you get stuff for doing that. Like you get really valuable items or currency, or
they incentivize it. Then maybe.
Or like when you I tend to co-op more in Souls games, because when you co-op and like defeat a boss or whatever with another player, you get brought back to life. Usually is the bonus, and like being alive is usually your life bar is extended, or you have other advantages. But of course, when you're alive, you can get invaded.
Right.
So trade-off, but like no, it's an interesting idea, and like it's sort of the one aspect of Dark Souls that
I
maybe
never would have guessed Doom would do it.
Maybe has not been exploited in the way you don't see that ripped off as much as like every other aspect of Dark Souls. So yeah, I mean if id can do it in a way that'll make sense because those guys are tech geniuses. So and I bet they'll do it so it's like imperceptible. I bet it like. Because in Dark Souls, it's just like you get the big, like, you are being invaded,
right,
and, you got to match everything up. But, like, it is so good at just getting that tech to run, seamlessly that I bet it'll be a smoother experience.
Couple other notes about Doom. Multiplayer being handled in-house this time.
Probably
Remember
wise.
the last game, they had another studio handle the multiplayer.
And that multiplayer died pretty much instantly.
It died on the vine very quickly. So multiplayer handled in-house. No snap map this time. Remember that was the big like build your own map thing that was like crazy, like complicated and complex. One of those things I tried once and tried it enough for the game eval and never went back and did it again. Although later on, like people were creating some pretty amazing stuff for that. But no snap map in this one. It is coming out day and date on Switch with all the other platforms.
Well, I mean, I would say Switch of Bethesda's ports, Doom is probably the most not sales successful, but in terms of like emulating the big boy experience on the more powerful platforms, I feel like even though it does have the frame rate, I feel like you get a pretty authentic version.
It's always been on Nintendo consoles too throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, go back
for
to
whatever reason.
Even going back to the Super Nintendo and Doom 64 and yeah.
It disappeared for a while. Like I don't think there was a Doom on GameCube, but the series kind of disappeared for a while.
The series wasn't around to do it.
Yeah. Really. So it makes sense on a Nintendo platform, and I'm guessing Bethesda thought it sold the first one so well enough that it's worth doing it. And the studio probably has the engine there already. Be nice if that studio would build an original game for Switch. That would be nice, but I don't see that ever happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to play it on Switch because why would you? But like, I mean, if you only have a Switch, there you go.
It's nice to, I mean, it's a big deal. A big budget AAA game launching on Switch the same day as other platforms. Well, that is a rarity.
Also, I'm sure it's part of Bethesda's deal with Nintendo. Right. There's got to be some kind of deal there between the companies.
A couple
that
other
Ubisoft
things.
Apparently may not have.
Right, yeah.
At least not for Steep.
It doesn't say, they just canceled Steep this week. I think we all knew that was coming, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, either like they're having technical problems cramming the thing on there, or they know that like it makes more sense to just sort of wait for, if they're going to do a Steep 2, just wait for that.
Yeah.
It's so far behind the other platforms.
They must have worked a lot on that, though.
Yeah, but if there's one thing we know, Ubisoft is not afraid to take a Nintendo project they're basically finished with and say, like, no, because they did that on the Wii U.
Well, I think the other part of the problem, too, is that Steep just didn't sell well anyway. Like, even on PS4 and Xbox One.
They said Steep sold beyond their expectations.
Well, you have to know what the expectations were first.
Well, and that was expectations are expectations, but like they said, Steep outsold expectations, and Watch Dogs 2 sold under expectations. So it's not like they're not willing to admit when something sells below par.
Yeah.
But that was the same, I think, presentation. Was they said Steep sold better than they thought, and Watch Dogs 2 sold less than they thought.
Interesting. A couple other things about Doom. There's wall climbing. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, there's sections where you have like these claws that you can like scale walls. There's a new melee weapon that's like a blade on your wrist that you can use. I
saw that. Like they were cutting guys in half.
Yeah, there's a chainsaw too, but that they've just added that as like an extra melee weapon or whatever. Game looks gorgeous, but it looks pretty much the same as the last one.
Yeah.
The game is set on Earth this time. It's hell on Earth, quote unquote. So Earth has been transformed by Satan. Is Satan even in Doom?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess the biggest demon is probably Satan, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, but they don't like use that moniker for whatever reason.
There's not a lot of dialogue in Doom.
No, there's really not. Nope, it's just like, hey, here's these things you want to kill, now kill them. So
I'd always enjoyed that kind of like the progression of like from Wolfenstein to Doom, where it was like, well, we just made a game where you kill Nazis and fight Hitler in a mech suit. Where do we go from? What's a bigger villain than that? Satan.
Yeah,
it's like
there is no bigger villain than that. That's it. I saw there were some people in the chat that are shocked that Watch Dogs 2 didn't sell very well. It's not that it didn't sell at all.
It just
It's
didn't
expectations.
it didn't hit their targets.
Right.
In part, probably because Watch Dogs 1 sold crazy good.
Yeah.
It sold Watch Dogs
Better
1,
than it should have.
well, because there was nothing else
Right.
like made for next gen
Yeah.
out at the time. It came out in like May, so there was. I mean, Watch Dogs 1 was like the perfect storm of
Tech.
tech and delaying it to just the right window
Yeah.
where people didn't have anything else to buy and play
Yeah.
with their new systems, because it was like that was like 8 months after the release of the
Publishers
systems.
just missed that window.
Yeah.
Can I just say how happy I am that we made it through, Matt? Like, man, this summer was tough.
Don't be too happy. You're 2 weeks out from having to play Shenmue.
But I'm just saying.
And as a fan of Shenmue, I can't wait for that. Like, what does Shane think about playing Shenmue now?
Yeah,
Like,
now. I mean, I loved it when it came out, but man, this summer was rough. That was a tough summer to get through, man.
there was not a lot to do.
There was nothing. I mean, I don't know how we made it, but we did. And now here come all the games. Let's talk about Rage 2, which was the other big tentpole that was shown by Bethesda today. Did you get to check out that stuff?
No.
So the big focus on...
I didn't see hardly any
anything.
QuakeCon stuff
Okay.
today.
Well, the big focus of what they showed today of Rage 2 was vehicles.
You're 2 up to the minute.
Yeah, hey, this is GameFace, man. It's the advantage of being on Fridays. The big thing that they showed was like the driving and the racing, and it's back. It appears to be a little different. It doesn't seem like it's these cordoned off events like the first Rage was. It just kind of organically happens in the open world. There are convoys that roll through, and kind of some of the mission objectives are destroy the convoy. They also talked about, what was the other big thing that they talked about today? Oh, it's set 30 years after the first game. So that kind of makes sense now. If you're wondering, like, why is this so different from the first one? Well, this is set 30 years later after things have kind of come back around. And society's kind of getting back on its feet, and it's not like this disparate struggle for survival. It's more of a struggle over greed than need, I guess is the best way to put it. Bases, taking over bases is a big part, but I think that was kind of the focus at E3. Parts of what they showed today is redundant with what they showed at E3, but they showed kind of new features. They show how... they show like the new upgraded like boomerang. Remember the boomerang from the first game? Well, now it can like curve around. It's like heat sinking, so it goes around corners and will attack enemies. And you can create like crazy combos with the boomerang. They have a word for it. I can't remember what it is, though.
It's something like the wing blade or something
Yeah,
like that.
I think that's what it is actually. But there's like a beefed up, revamped version of that. There's a
It's never explained how you catch it.
No, there's like an ultimate sort of, in that you have a meter that you build up. When it gets full, you can do like pull off your ultimate attack. There's no multiplayer whatsoever. They said there's going to be some kind of social hooks in the game, but they haven't elaborated on it yet. But there's no multiplayer. I'm guessing people aren't going to be invading your game like they do in Doom. But they said there's some kind of a social element to it that they haven't explained yet. So this is primarily an open world single player Mad Max game that we've all been waiting for.
Since the last Mad Max game.
No, this is really Mad Max. This is way better than that Mad Max game. At least in concept it is. We haven't played it to know if
maybe
it's
on
executed
foot. Like
well.
Mad Max's car combat was pretty dead on. Certainly what they were going for with Mad Max.
Were there convoys in the Mad Max game?
yeah.
Were there?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't play like any of it, so
I played
don't
like
know.
80 hours of that damn game, and
I know you did.
And I don't know why. I only stopped because there was some glitch that prevented me from getting the last tire upgrade, and I got mad at it.
But as someone who only kind of watched Mad Max and listened to you talk about it, this seems to be more true to Mad Max than the actual Mad Max game.
I would not say that at all.
Really?
No, like Mad Max didn't do anything like this in Road. I mean, have you seen Road Warrior? It's just like cars ramming into each other. There's no like auto turrets and stuff. I mean, this is way beyond Mad Max.
Yeah, the tech is advanced, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying the tone of it and the feel of the game.
I mean, in the sense that it's in a post-apocalyptic sort of like driving in what looks like it could potentially be Australia, maybe. But like, no, I don't. It's Mad Max in the sense that everything post-apocalyptic with vehicles
In a desert.
owes something to Mad Max.
I don't know. I haven't watched the last Mad Max movie. This looks more like the movie to me than the Mad Max game did.
Well, I mean, obviously, whoever made when the people who made this game liked Fury Road a lot, yes, but Until I see some guys wiggling around on the giant bendy poles.
Or playing
I will reserve
guitar
judgment.
with a gigantic wall of amps. But I'm really excited for this game. One thing I will say...
I'm kind of... This is one of the few games I'm sort of continually disappointed it's not coming out this year.
Dude, the gun combat in this looks awesome, too. And I will say that it still looks like the AI still is not up to where it was in the last game. I think they just kind of bailed on that concept.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect... Especially with, again, I feel like that AI advance that was in the first game was very much id's thing.
Yeah, it could be.
And I wouldn't really expect that from this.
Yep, I mean, based on all the gameplay, it's just simply not in there. But you're seeing now, like, the base invasion stuff. You're also seeing the wind blade. And right there, I think you'll see it go around a corner or whatever. But the objective, one of the big objectives in the game is to come to a base, go through it, wipe everybody out, and then you push a button at the end, and then like a big, massive air purifier drops down from the sky.
That's a good point. These are the people who made Mad Max.
Oh, it is. It's Avalanche. That's right.
So that would be why
that makes a lot of sense.
Why the car combat has a similar flavor to it.
Yeah, I didn't even put two and two together that it was the same studio. It also makes sense why Bethesda has this team working on it. But which one are you more excited for, Doom or Rage?
Probably Rage.
Yeah.
Just in the sense that Doom is more Doom. And this looks like it. Yeah. Also, I'm an open world fan.
Yeah.
Like, I like open world stuff, and I want to see what this is and what I can do and what I can blow up and who I can shoot. It's like, whereas Doom is a very satisfying game. I really like the original, so I'm interested. But like,
oh, you also get a new ability when you clear out a base.
yeah, and I
So
like
that way
that.
it's a little bit like Metroid.
Yeah, I like that too. Like Rage is doing, not to really directly compare them too much, but Rage is doing more of the stuff that keeps me playing.
Yeah.
Whereas like Doom,
There's the air purifier, whatever the hell they call it. But so there's like an eco angle to this game.
Yeah, you got terraform some shit. I mean, that was kind of there in the first game too. They just didn't explore it too much. Like, that was the idea of like the cryogenically frozen people that like then you're like the last survivor of or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I heard that character you played in the first game is in this somewhere. That you might run into them.
Be a lot older, that's for sure. Yeah. Be like geriatric at this point. Maybe he runs a base or something.
Yeah, maybe like he'd probably be like 50 or so. Think you were a 20-something military type, like every other game ever.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But John Goodman's dead. That's for sure. John Goodman's character.
Yeah. For me, I don't know which of these two games I'm more excited for because I like the horror angle of Doom, and I've always liked Doom, and I love the gunplay of Doom, but obviously Rage looks like a far more diverse game because Doom is, it's a linear shooter. It's an old school throwback. Rage is more
but not too linear.
2018.
That was one of the good things about Doom was like it kind of brought back that more maze-driven level design.
Find hidden items.
Run around, find not so much hunt the key card thing, but like when you looked at a map of a Doom level from the new Doom, like it was twisty and turny in the way those.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a Call of Duty just hallway.
But it twisted and turned, but it never reconnected.
Yeah.
So it's still like linear level design. There's like you find little arms you could run down, and you get like armor
and then you could
or
usually
whatever.
jump off something and get back to the main area. Or whatever. But it felt more like something that would have been made in the '90s in terms of how the levels were designed.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And certainly, I think Rage is the more contemporary game, but I don't like the setting and the tone as much as Doom. So for me, I think it's a wash. Like I'm really excited for both of them, but I can't really pick my favorite child. I guess.
If I was able to pick one to have right now, I'd pick Rage 2.
Yep. If I had to play, well, I don't know, man. I don't think I could. I have to learn more.
I like open world stuff.
Yeah, I typically do, but I like the controlled chaos of Doom as well. It's one of the few franchises I feel like can still thrive with that old level design.
Right. Well, I will also say, like, I feel like if I want a Doom fix, I could go just play Doom right now.
Or you could play one of like 20 indie shooters right now because there are so many circle strafe shooters coming out.
But I could just go play
other gun shit. I mean, there's just tons of them.
I could just go play the 2016 Doom, and I feel like I wouldn't have
get your fix.
I wouldn't be missing out on a whole ton of the new stuff in the next Doom. But like Rage, going back to play the old Rage, not
compared to this new one,
not working. That's not going to work out too well for you.
Absolutely. So the only other things that were announced at QuakeCon today, Quake Champions just went free to play, which is something that should have happened a long time ago.
They did give it away for free on Steam for a while, a couple months ago.
I honestly, looking back, I cannot completely remember how they've... It seems like Bethesda has tried everything with this game. You're right. Like, there was a period where I thought it was free to play, but I guess not.
They gave it away for... Because I have it, and I didn't buy it. It was given away for free download for a while, like some weekend or maybe a week or something on Steam. Like E3 area around there, I want to say. I never installed it, but I did. I did like.
I have played it. I've spent some time with it, but I realized how rusty I had become, and the people who were playing it were so freaking good. I just mopped the floor with me.
I mean, it's
also, by the way, we were talking about the Black Ops 4 demo last week. Another one's up right now, by the way, if you want to go play and you haven't played it yet. And it's on Xbox and PC this weekend now.
I don't know.
I think it's on all 3 platforms now. Anyway.
It keeps updating for multiple gigabytes on my PS4. That's all I know.
It does. And you know how you were saying, like, you got your butt kicked or whatever, and I was like, oh, I did okay. Oh, my God. The next, 2 days playing that thing, oh, my God. I just got destroyed. Destroyed. Like, I don't know if, the first, 24 hours or whatever, it was all noobs. But the longer the weekend went on, the more and more I just got completely housed, every match. The first couple days, my KD was 1.2. By the end of the weekend, my KD was 0.7. I just got annihilated. Some people are so good at that game. It is mind-boggling. To think that they had only played it for a couple days, and I mean, sure, they had played Black Ops 3 or whatever. Oh my God. Yeah. I had a rude awakening last weekend. I was like, oh my gosh. And then the matchmaking I wouldn't say it got worse, but I didn't have time to play it. And by the end of the weekend, everyone was level 30 whatever, and I was level 9. And they have these crazy weapons and contraptions that I didn't even know existed, and I was just, it got really bad. So I'm still going to give it another spin this weekend, though, I think. We'll see how the first couple of matches go.
Right. Have fun with that.
Yeah, exactly. Then the only other thing from QuakeCon was new content for Elder Scrolls Online. But that's it. That's pretty much the wrap on QuakeCon. Nothing from Elder Scrolls or anything like that. I know a lot of people think QuakeCon and it has to be a shooter. It doesn't. Bethesda.
It just has to be.
It's just Bethesda's con, pretty much at this point.
Or it's they focus on the id stuff and stuff.
Yeah.
Rage is an id game, even if they're not making the sequel. But they keep it to kind of the id style things.
Texas. They keep it to Texas.
Yeah.
Which is that whole part of Bethesda is just in the
deep
state
in the
there.
heart of.
Yeah, pretty much. So. Overall, I think that was a pretty good QuakeCon, though.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at prior QuakeCons, we got a lot more this time than we usually get from it. So I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah. Both the games today, I think, look great. I'm really excited for them. Again, Bethesda continues to impress. They don't put out no junk.
Now we have to just wait and see when they show gameplay of Fallout 76.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
I mean, sure, the stuff they showed at E3 was in-engine, clearing the game, but we have not gotten a
developer walkthrough.
Yeah.
Where they just play the game for 10 minutes straight or 15 minutes straight.
Give you a taste of what it's like to really play the game.
What's the gameplay loop?
We haven't seen that, and we're 2 months out.
Yeah. It's hard to believe. When are they going to show it? I mean, this was QuakeCon.
Yeah, but they don't keep the Bethesda Studios stuff. They keep the Bethesda Studios stuff separate from the QuakeCon
Right,
stuff.
but this was an opportunity with a big audience to kind of...
Well, maybe Gamescom.
No, that's got to be it. Yeah. I always forget about Gamescom for some reason. I shouldn't. It's 2 weeks away. It's going to be a lot of work. So it'll make for some great GameFace episodes, though. So there you go. That's QuakeCon 2018. If anything else pops up across the weekend, you'll find it curated on Sifted. And if it's big, we'll talk about it on next week's show. So now let's shift gears. We're going to go back to an indie game. An indie game that oddly enough, is kind of similar to Dead Cells in some ways. It's called Chasm. And this game has also been getting gigantic review scores. It's also done very, very well with critics. This game, to me, the most obvious difference between this and Dead Cells is jumping.
platforming, it seems like, in this game is far more prevalent than
platform. I mean, this game
and far more difficult, maybe too. Lots of bottomless pits, acid pits, like.
No, I mean, you get hurt a little bit when you land an acid or whatever, but it doesn't kill you.
Okay.
At least not.
And I have not played this at all. This one's all you.
This is a lot more Castlevania.
Okay.
Or Metroid. It's so it is still procedurally generated, but it uses a single seed for each save. So everybody's game will be different, but the game doesn't change when you die.
Okay.
So if I go through the first section of the floor number 2,
and you die,
and I die and I reload, it will always be the same layout.
The level design's exactly the
level
same.
stays the same. It is procedurally generated for my game, and your game would be different, but mine will always be that same layout.
Okay.
Whether you prefer that or not is sort of a matter of taste. In this case, the challenge mostly comes from A, the platforming, B, the fact that you really can't take too many hits, especially early on. There's a leveling system. I think Symphony of the Night is probably the closest comparison, which you can even see here in this footage, like the way he swings.
I mean, you can just see Castlevania all over.
Well, the way he slashes the sword is almost the exact same, like
that really
height,
quick slash.
And I gotta say, like, this game is to me feels, at least early on, it felt harder than Dead Cells, because you have the save rooms like Castlevania or Metroid, and if you die while you're out away from those save rooms, game over.
Yeah.
Start over from that last, and the save points are few and far between, even early on. So early on, I had to kind of learn to not just because that's the other thing is Dead Cells teaches you to power forward no matter what. Because even if you die, you want to get as far as you can. Because the only way to keep any of your stuff is to finish the section. But this game, you got to do the thing where you're fighting your way through. You got a good weapon, you got a good piece of armor, but you got hit a couple times because you have early on you have 60 life points, and getting hit by a standard enemy can take off 8.
Jeez.
And you can, and the other thing that's not like Dead Cells is touching enemies hurts you, not just getting hit by their attacks. You don't get hurt in Dead Cells for the most part by just touching enemies. So you got to be on your toes. You got to know where everything's coming from. And if you lose too much life, it's time to backtrack and go back to that last save room and hope you make it. Because if you don't want to lose that cool thing you just picked up, because it's randomized,
You want to know what I think, as someone who hasn't played this, thinks the biggest difference between this and Dead Cells is that there are angled floors.
Yeah.
So Dead Cells, all the floors are flat. When you have angled floors, it changes everything.
Especially when your main attacks are on a specific horizontal
Exactly.
level.
You get to that thing where you're like, how far down the hill can the enemy come where I can attack it and it can't touch me?
And here's one of the things that is, I don't know if I'd say unique, but it's definitely been one of the wrinkles of this game that I've had to deal with more than I spent anything else. When you're on one of those, slopes, it changes how you jump.
Oh, really?
It changes how far you can jump and the arc of your jump. It changes your momentum, and it takes momentum into account. And that's also true of the enemies. So if you've got, you just saw one of those blob things there. If one of those blob things is hopping at you, and it's hopping at you on a downslope, it'll come further at you.
Farther.
And if you're not ready for that, it'll hit you in the face, and there's there's 1/10 of your life gone.
Oh, wow.
You do have a dodge. A triangle is like a backdash. But the thing about this game is the animation. You're stuck in the animations a lot. You have to wait for you're stuck on the ground while your sword swing animation finishes. If you backdash, you have to finish that animation. And if their attack takes them further than your dash, you're still going to get hit.
Right.
So if you're going to commit to something, you better be sure that that's what's going to be the right move for that moment. So it is a very deliberate game, I would say, in a way that Dead Cells isn't.
Are you more cautious when you play this than you
vastly more cautious when I play it? Because Dead Cells kind of encourages sort of a wild improvisation.
Yeah.
which is part of why it's so appealing, I would
Absolutely,
say.
yeah.
This is a much more methodical, like, let's figure out what's over here, what's in here, let's check this guy's pattern, let's make sure we don't trigger the guy after him before we deal with this enemy, that kind of thing. It's like, oh,
Where you're like inching 1 pixel at a time.
yeah, there are rooms where I did that because like
Yeah.
I just wanted, and everyone's different. Like right there, you saw, that rat did its like little rev up attack, and it does
Yeah.
it up the slope, and your attack can't touch him because
Yeah.
he's kind of coming up, so you have to backtrack or jump over it. There have been sections where my life was low enough, and I knew like I wasn't powerful enough with the current weapon, and I would just jump over everything, and just in the hopes of getting to a new save room. And more often than not, I did not, and I just died anyway. But so yeah, this game.
I mean, this game really, like, next to Metroidvania in the dictionary, like, there should be a screenshot of this game. Because literally, it looks like every element was either taken from Metroid
Yeah.
or from Castlevania.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think the procedural generation is one of its weak points, because one of the things I keep thinking as I'm getting through all this stuff is like, yeah, this is fine, but it would be a stronger thing if this had been a handcrafted section that knew what I was dealing with and knew what I would have to get through in order to get to the save point. And some of this is obviously like this. I recognize this room. Like, I've been in this room, so clearly not everything
is
completely randomly generated.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's like some specific places that like are intentionally made. But when you load the game up for the first time, it does have like a little seed number on it. So clearly, there's some stuff like that happening in there somewhere.
What about the story? It seems, I don't know. The lead character seems awful boring.
Yeah, he's like a trainee knight of something or other, and there's not a lot of personality.
Certainly
in the
not
story.
as interesting as Samus.
The other thing
or
is-
one of the Belmonts.
No, the other thing is like it seems very one note. I mean, maybe it gets different later on, but like the whole thing seems to take place in the same mines. Like you're sent to this town to like figure out why everybody's gone, or something. Like the shipments aren't coming in, and like the whole town's like captured down in these mines, and you have to go down and like rescue a bunch of people. And as you rescue people, they go up and they go up to the town, and then you've got now you have a blacksmith, and now you have a woman who sells potions, and now you have someone who can mix tonics and like that kind of thing. Now you have somebody who'll play cards with you if you can find a deck of cards somewhere and bring it back to them.
Right.
So that's kind of like the thing there. So, but like it is a lot sameier than. Although here's your Metroid moment.
Yeah, big elevator.
Big elevator, slowly going down a long tube while the main character stares at you.
So which would you recommend? Dead Cells between these two?
Definitely, I would definitely say.
And they're not exactly the same.
No,
either.
but I mean they're different enough that I've been playing both of them and not feeling like they're redundant.
Yeah.
But if you're only going to get one of them, like Dead Cells is probably the better game, unless you really hate this sort of Dark Souls style die and start over thing, and you'd rather have a save point driven kind of challenge. If you don't like the whole go back through the same area again, slightly different, to get back to where you were in the hopes that you'll do better this time, then you might want to go with Chasm, because Chasm is a much more standard Castlevania Metroid sort of thing.
A lot more personality in Dead Cells.
Definitely. And smoother combat, like
yeah.
more.
You can see that just by watching.
Yeah, I mean, but this is like some people would, if you prefer more of a throwback to kind of the roots of the genre, Chasm is that.
What platforms and how much was it?
It was mine is on the PS4, and I want to say it was $15.
So cheaper than Dead Cells.
But I
as well.
think it was $5 off for pre-order, or for PS Plus the first week or something like that. So I think it might be 20. But it's
So a
still,
little
it's still,
cheaper, but
still
not much.
cheaper. I still recommend Dead Cells. I'm gonna say Dark Cells forever.
Eventually, there will be a game called Dark Cells. I can guarantee it.
It can't be coincidence that they named their game something so close to Dark Souls. Dark Souls,
Definitely
Dead
not.
Cells.
It's the dog whistle to the Souls
yeah.
crew. Yeah.
So I think Dead Cells is probably the better game, but Chasm is not bad by any respect. Chasm is very good. And any other week, I would be stuck on Chasm, but
Right.
Dead Cells just has that one more
Unfortunate
try
sort
to
of
it.
release calendar.
A little bit. Well,
for
Chasm
these games.
was a week ago,
Right.
So Chasm had its shot.
Yeah.
and it's it fits in. We're in an embarrassment of riches in the Metroidvania like.
There's
roguelite
more
genre.
coming, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like every day a new one's announced. Honestly,
It's funny how like
at least like 2 a week.
it's funny how long we went with basically like you had to depend on Nintendo or Konami to like grace you
Yeah,
with
yeah.
another Castlevania or Metroid for so long, and now it's like, oh, you don't want to do that anymore, Nintendo and Konami. The indie game world has you covered 5 times.
Well,
five times over in 6 ways from Sunday.
Yeah,
Here we
and
go.
these indies are better than the last Metroid.
Yeah, they're very good at it.
I mean, let's just be honest.
I mean, there's a lot. I really liked the Metroid 2 remake, but like there's a very strong case to be made that fan remake of Metroid 2 was a better game. It certainly relied more on the Super Metroid flavor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can totally see why someone would prefer that in terms of approach. So yeah, if that's the kind of thing you're after, I think Chasm is more true to the old style. Dead Cells is more of a reinvention, but it's fair to compare them, I'd say, and I'd say Dead Cells comes out on top for me, but I don't mean that as a slam on Chasm at all. Chasm's a very good game.
All right. And all right, we're going to move on, and just to prove to you that I just don't give a crap anymore about YouTube flags, we're now going to talk about Super Smash Brothers. And we're going to show you footage of Super Smash Brothers. There was a Nintendo Direct this week for Super Smash Brothers Ultimate for the Switch. And pretty much the whole game was just laid out.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like information overload. We've been talking about Castlevania a lot in this episode, and we're going to talk about it again because one of the new characters for Super Smash Brothers Ultimate is Simon Belmont.
And Richter Belmont.
And Richter Belmont as a shadow character.
Echo
character, sorry.
Clone. They're clones.
Yeah,
Come on.
Basically the
give
same.
me a break.
I got to come up with a new name for it. But not surprising. Like I guess I was more surprised that it took so long for one of the Belmonts to make it into Smash. I think maybe a year ago, or when we first found out about this, somebody asked us at the end of the show Q&A what characters we wanted to see in Smash Brothers, and I think this was my answer, that I wanted to see one of the Belmonts from Castlevania.
Yeah, it makes sense. He's Simon's one of the longest requested. I think pretty much going back to the first game.
They also murder Luigi.
Yeah. Either the first game or maybe when we first started seeing like Solid Snake show up.
Yeah.
In Melee.
Yeah.
Where like suddenly you realize like, oh, you can do guest stuff. So like then everyone's like, oh, if they don't have to be just specific Nintendo characters, then yeah, let's go nuts. But I feel like what happened here is basically like, Konami started with Snake, and then I think Snake went away in Brawl, and then he's coming back for this one.
Yeah.
So, but the trick with Snake is that they're just reusing the old asset. So if they're going to build a new Konami asset, they have the opportunity to finally put Simon in.
Yep, that's true.
So I am a little surprised that not so much because obviously Simon is iconic because he was the first.
I mean, to me, he's the most important Belmont.
But Trevor is the star of all the current Castlevania content.
Yeah,
Trevor is the star of the Pachinko game. Trevor is the star of the Netflix series. And Trevor feels like he would have a more interesting assist trophy lineup because you had the Castlevania 3 kind of cast and crew kind of behind him.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure they'll be in there anyway. Trevor will probably be a costume for Simon. I mean, they're based because I see why with Richter, everyone's like, oh, why is Richter the Echo and not Trevor? Well, I think Richter has a couple of moves that's new move because the Echoes have a couple of differences.
Right.
There's a couple of modified things. They're not exactly So I can see why Richter would be an Echo because he needs a few new moves to make him feel like Richter, whereas Trevor is basically Simon with different clothing.
Yep.
So I would bet that Trevor's outfit will be one of the alternate costumes in.
I mean, Simon though is the Nintendo Castlevania guy.
Well, I mean, so's Trevor.
Has Trevor been on a lot of Nintendo platforms?
Trevor has only been in a couple of games, but he was on. And his playable appearances, I think, were Dracula's Curse, which was on the NES.
That was.
And Castlevania Judgment, that terrible fighting game, which was on the Wii.
Oh, you're right.
But Trevor's kind of the face of the brand right now, as much as you could call it that.
Right.
It just surprises me he's not in there, but I bet he is in there as an alternate costume. It's a cool. I mean, it's a cool addition. It doesn't.
Doesn't make the game worse.
No, it
That's
doesn't
for
hurt.
sure.
And that's another amiibo I gotta buy.
Oh, that's another thing. There are amiibo coming. All the stuff we're going to talk about, there are amiibo coming out for all of it.
Oh yeah. If you're a character in Smash Brothers, you get an amiibo.
They haven't
That's a
announced
rule.
yet the release date for most of it, but yeah, everything is getting an amiibo that we're going to discuss.
Even Luigi's corpse.
Yeah, that is an amiibo I would definitely buy. It's funny. That's a very bizarre trailer, isn't it? That Simon.
Yeah,
Belmont
I don't know why they. I mean, I guess it just fits how they treat Luigi these days. But
yeah, he's. That's
Why
why he
not?
has the death stare. Let's see what else. King K. Rool, the
Yeah.
character nobody wanted.
I don't know, man. I saw some footage from the Nintendo World Store, and people were losing their minds when King K. Rool showed up. I mean, like people were crying. Like it was-
Really?
Like people were having
They
emotional.
cried over
people were
King
having
K. Rool?
emotional reactions to a CG crocodile that I usually reserve for like the death of pets.
Right.
Like I don't know why, but you know, I'm not a Donkey Kong Country fan though, so I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe this is something that community
I
has
didn't
been,
think there
has
were
been pining for.
There
many,
were
many
Donkey
years.
Kong Country fans that were that hardcore.
Well, at the same time, what else is left for the Donkey Kong characters, really? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got Diddy and Donkey. I mean, at that point, you're either adding Cranky or K. Rool, right?
I'd rather have Cranky. I would. Cranky's the best character in that whole lot, if you ask me. Here's another Echo character.
Dark
Dark
Samus.
Samus, yeah.
So also, like, so if there's more to come, I wonder, because like, right now, with the addition of Simon, they have the entire Captain N cast except for Captain N.
Yeah.
Where's Captain N?
Yeah, what the
Time
hell?
to bring in Captain N. Complete the team.
I mean, they're literally running out of characters, though. I mean, it's insane how many characters are in this game.
They should be. Well, Capcom's still involved because of Ryu, right?
Yeah.
So where's Arthur?
Yeah.
We need some ghouls and ghosts and goblins up in here.
That'd be a great character, actually.
Yeah.
If he loses his clothes as he takes damage or
Yeah.
whatever, that would be sweet. Let's see, some other stuff that was announced. There's going to be 900 songs in this game, Matt.
Yeah. Well,
There's so many.
there are 34
songs.
songs just in the Street Fighter category.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean,
Music,
it's
music
so
is a big deal in this series and always has been.
You're
Despite
right.
what Tommy Tallarico would have.
No,
you
you're right.
believe.
It absolutely is.
Do you remember that when Melee came out and Tallarico gave it like a 2 out of 10?
Yeah.
Because the music sucked, and I'm like, that's the coolest version of Brinstar I've ever heard, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I love Tommy Tallarico. Love what he's done with Video Games
Oh, yeah.
Live. Love that he's bringing back the Intellivision. But he is absolutely the worst video game reviewer that ever lived. Ever lived.
Well, at least he wrote his own.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Okay, maybe that other guy's worse than Tommy Tallarico. But as far as people who actually
No one
wrote
could ever accuse Tommy of not having his own opinion.
No,
that's for sure.
sure. His editorial integrity remains intact.
Absolutely.
I'll say that much.
You always got 100% pure
Truth
what
from
Tommy
him,
believed.
what he really believed. Absolutely. There are so many songs in this game that they have set up like this whole like audio suite for it, where you can set up playlists and all this other crazy crap. Like that shows you how big of a deal it is. Let's see. There are weaker final smashes in this, so I guess you don't have to completely max it out to pull off the finisher, and you can do it beforehand, but it just doesn't carry as much of a punch, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the final smashes were always kind of a controversial choice, so it makes sense to me that they tone them down in an effort to kind of make this more appealing to the competitive scene. And, I get the feeling that even Nintendo kind of wishes that the community would let go of Melee
Yeah.
after all these years.
Well,
but
it's going to now, I think.
I think you underestimate
Really?
the Melee.
This
yeah,
game has everything.
but it's
How
not
could you ever want to play another Smash Brothers after this?
because it's not Melee.
That's ridiculous. Squad Strike.
If I never need to see another match of Melee played ever again, I will be a happy person.
Yay.
But you can't underestimate the loyalty to Melee in the Smash community. It is, Smash 4.
I'm well aware of it. I
At
just think
Evo,
it's
Smash
ridiculous.
4's finals were on Saturday, and Melee's
I
the
know.
one that got Sunday.
I know.
Which is probably good because what happened with Smash 4 was not a happy moment. But
Yeah.
hoo boy, I will say this: I hope they're making some adjustments to Bayonetta.
Yeah.
Because-
that happened last year, though.
Yeah,
Bayonetta dominated last year.
yeah, but They got to find.
They didn't do anything.
They said they did.
Oh, they
but
did?
it didn't really matter.
Yeah, obviously it didn't make a difference. Let's see what else. A squad strike elimination mode. 32-player tournament mode, which comes back. It's so weird how they have features in this franchise and then take them away, and then make a big deal about it when they bring them back.
Yeah.
It's like we had it, and then you took it away.
Hey, that thing you liked is back.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you take it away? But it's back.
It's back. Who cares about why we took it away? There's 103 stages.
Yep.
That is insane.
Well, I mean, they're taking all the stages they've ever made, right?
Yeah, they're bringing
And
back
bringing new ones.
Well, yeah, and then they're bringing back the N64 stages,
Yep.
and they're kind of leaving them the way they were originally built, so that they're like
Well, then
nostalgic.
you can also do like pretty much like tournament versions of all the other stages. So like
Yeah.
you can basically they simplify them so they're more like
right.
balanced for competitive play.
Yep.
So like there's a lot.
And the stages.
I feel like this game is almost like it feels like Sakurai just kind of go like, all right, fine. Here's all the stuff you keep asking
F
for.
you.
Just
I'm
shut up.
tired
Like,
of
go
dealing
away and
with
leave
you
me
people.
alone.
Or maybe he just really doesn't want to ever make another one.
That could be. I mean, Ultimate implies this is as good as it's ever gonna get. Make it a platform, add stuff to it over the years, port it to the next system if you have to. But like this is Smash Brothers from now on, and it'll just be like a living game. Just moving forward. I think that would be a wise choice.
103 stages, and the stages will morph from one into another. Although seeing it in practice, I don't know if you can pull that back up, Sam. It's in that B-roll towards the end. Looking at it in practice is not that impressive. It's almost like the world just disappears. You still see the silhouettes of your characters, and then the new stage just kind of appears. It's not like the worlds actually like melt or morph into like the next stage or whatever. Maybe Sam will be able to pull it up. But man, I agree with you. I think right now they are turning Smash Brothers into a platform. They are saying this is it. It is called Smash Brothers Ultimate, appropriately titled, but they're throwing everything in it. All the characters, all the stages, all the music. It's the whole franchise in one game. To me, it renders the rest of the franchise irrelevant, to be honest with you. It just seems like, why even bother playing any of the other games after this when you can get everything in one? And I think you're right. I think this is a platform now. I think you're not going to have to worry. Like, I think any DLC that you buy, any cosmetics that you buy for it, I think you're going to be able to use those forever. I think this is a platform that's going to be ported over to whatever Nintendo's next console is, and then ported into the one after that. And I think all the stuff that you spend money on is just going to carry over. And, I mean, you can't say they're starting with a clean slate. They're starting with a full plate instead. And they're just going to keep adding accoutrements onto it. And I think this is the final platform for Smash. Having seen all this, has it changed your excitement for the game at all?
No, because they still haven't shown the thing that I would be most interested in, which would be like a campaign. There is still a mode on the main screen that's blurred out.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that is. With any luck, it'll be some kind of story-driven something.
What's called Subspace Emissary?
Subspace Emissary was the Brawl one? Was it Brawl or Melee? Melee.
Probably Melee if people love it so much.
Yeah, people didn't love it so much.
They do now.
Eh.
I thought you said people love Melee. They
love Melee as a competitive game.
Right. You mean a single player?
Yeah, single player. They're not as thrilled. I mean, because they were basically like Kirby games with everybody running around in it. Because Melee had like a campaigny sort of thing, but Brawl's the one that had the story.
They're saying Brawl had Subspace Emissary.
Yeah, Brawl had the one that really attempted to be a story with the cutscenes and the CG and everything.
I can't even keep track of the Smash Brothers games, like what one has. And I know there are people out there that are experts that know everything.
Well, I remember the first one.
They're just all blurred together.
I imported the first one, so
Yeah.
because
I remember the first one too.
Everyone
It's
was
the
so
one I
excited
played the
about
most.
it. All-Star Diranto Smash Brothers.
I've never played Smash as much as I played that one again.
I played a lot. I remember one time we came down for our first E3 and we stayed with some friends of a friend, and they had some people staying with them who were recovering addicts basically and gang members. Like it was like a kind of an AA
halfway
thing.
house.
It wasn't a halfway house, but it was like an AA kind of thing. Like just like it was for help. And some of their friends came over to pick them up to go. They were going to go out. We'd come back from E3 and we were all playing Smash Brothers on the N64. We'd brought it down with us, and they came in to pick people up, and they saw like, oh, what is like? Is that the Metroid guy like beating up the Zelda guy? And like we're like, yeah, this is Smash Brothers. And they sat down with us and played Smash Brothers with us. Like, these were like gangbanger dudes.
Right.
And they sat down with us, and we played Smash Brothers together for like 3 hours.
That's a great story.
Like it was like, and they're like, "This is amazing! Like, what is this? Like, and of course it's the Japanese version, so it wasn't out in America yet. And like, I was like, yeah, it's Smash Bros. Because of that. And they're like, dude, I'm gonna buy this this is great. He's like, I haven't thought of these characters in forever. This is amazing. And so like, Smash Brothers brings everyone together. That's the great thing about Smash Brothers.
But you're saying that all this new news doesn't alter your hype for it at all?
No, I mean, I'm still gonna get it. I mean, I'm glad Simon's in it. Like, I like any acknowledgement that Castlevania is still a thing, in this post-Konami game-making world. King K. Rool doesn't do anything for me. All the music's cool. I mean, look, I'm in. Like, you're not gonna make me buy it more. I'm still gonna get it.
Honestly, it hasn't really changed my impressions of it because ultimately it's still Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
And I'm just not a big fan of Smash Brothers. And look, if Snake didn't do it and Sonic didn't and all the dozens of other characters haven't done it, Simon Belmont and King K. Rool aren't going to change that.
I don't know what you'd have to put. Like, if I wasn't into it, I mean, I'm not super into it because I'm not I'm not a huge Smash Brothers person. I don't really have anyone to play with offline, and I feel like playing it. I played it online on Brawl and on Wii U, and I felt like it was not really an ideal experience, shall we say?
Absolutely not.
So, like, if I wasn't gonna get it, if I was not, not convinced, what would convince? Like, who could they announce to get me in?
Is there anyone left? Like, it's like everyone.
You'd have to go crazy far afield. It would have to be like Godzilla or something. It'd be like
something extreme,
some crazy weird Optimus Prime.
Something they'd never do, probably.
Yeah, like you'd have to go like into like a realm of pop culture that you just Batman.
Yeah.
Like the 8-bit version of Batman from the NES game. Like something like that would be like, oh, that'd be cool,
Yeah.
But I feel like none of the guest characters have ever really matched the hype of Solid Snake.
No.
Solid Snake showing up was just such a surprise and such a crazy choice, and then they did it up
implemented very well.
Yeah, they did it up so well.
Yeah.
With
I
the
think that may have
stage
been the
and all
last
this.
time I actually cared about Smash Brothers.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like it's hard not to care when you've got all these characters because also he had the pedigree of the NES era and like it was so exactly what Smash Brothers should be. And I like, that we've moved forward. Actually, what would put me over the edge if I wasn't already in Kazuma Kiryu, the guy from Yakuza.
Yeah.
If there's no reason for him to be in there at all because he's a PlayStation exclusive. Whatever. Yeah. Although the 1 and 2 HD were on Wii U, just never came over here.
Yeah.
I'm
very happy for Smash fans because if you're a Smash fan, you have to be losing your mind over this game. I mean, it is the ultimate Smash Brothers game, and for people that have loved this franchise all along, I'm very, very happy for them. They're going to have a game that they're going to be able to play for the next 3 years or longer, or maybe the rest of their lives, in all honesty. So I'm very happy for them. It's just never been a franchise that has resonated with me, despite being a fan of pretty much every single character that's in the game. I would rather have like a one-on-one fighting game with all these characters than have this arena-based platforming whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I haven't played it a lot since Melee. I was really freaking good at Melee. I wasn't like competitive good at Melee, like the 4,000 inputs per minute kind of thing. But I pretty much never lost as Link among my friend group, to the point that people didn't want to play it anymore.
Yeah,
like it was, which is sort of the story of my life with fighting games. It's like at a certain point, everyone's like, "You really think this is fun to play with you?" With these,
well, it's probably no fun. It's no fun for us, and it's no fun for you either.
Yeah. I'm never going to get any better if I'm just playing
No,
people
you
that don't
won't.
know.
If you're just playing people like us, the rank and files, you have to get into that Evo pool, man.
The one game that did that's the thing is I'm kind of between. I'm too good to play casuals, and I'm not good enough to play real players.
You might be able to win a match at Evo.
Again,
that would actually be a fun thing to do.
In
it's
a pool,
like, you go to Evo, and then us shoot like a mini documentary of your
experience. In a pool of like 3,000 people, I probably wouldn't lose my first match necessarily. But like, I mean, I've gone to tournaments and did okay. I got in the top 16 on things a couple times on the early Marvel games.
Man.
But like, I mean, not like local stuff,
Yeah.
not like real things, not like SoCal regionals or anything.
Yeah.
But
Would you be into doing that?
Eh,
How much is it to pay to get into Evo?
I don't know anymore. I don't even remember. I haven't been. Last time I went to Evo, you didn't have to pay to get into Evo.
Right. But I mean to enter.
To enter, I don't know.
All right. Well, if we're still around
Yeah,
a
we'll
year
see.
from now, I would be very interested in doing that, and we would pay like your way in and everything, and
Yeah, you're
just.
Still sending me to Vegas. It's not a.
We may not be there very long.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a great idea and really interesting because you are good enough to where if I did it, it would be a joke. Everybody would know I'd go there, I'd lose my 2 matches, and I'd be gone.
That might be more entertaining.
No, it'd be way better because you actually have a chance to like maybe hop up a bracket or two. So anyway, we'll see. But anyway, that's Smash Brothers Ultimate. I don't know what else. I mean, other than that one mode, what's left to really unveil about it?
Well, I mean, it's like the 103 stages is just what we know so far. Clearly, there's more
Yeah.
to come. They're not done. We'll see. I
But-
feel like we've got more characters to go.
Probably, but I think I would say most people at this point have figured out whether they're going to buy
Oh,
it or
yeah.
not.
I mean, I think most people knew they were going to buy it the instant
No, you're right.
it was announced or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know, my girlfriend is a Castlevania nut. I mean, Castlevania is her favorite thing of all time. Castlevania 3 is her favorite game of all time. And of course, all her friends are like, "Oh, you're gonna get a Switch and Smash Brothers now, huh?" And she's like, "No." Like, it's like I'm gonna buy the amiibos,
Right.
but like, she's like, I didn't care about Smash Brothers, and even Simon Belmont is not enough.
Not enough.
To make her care $60. It was really $360 because she needed a Switch.
Yeah. Doesn't work on me either. Like I said, all these characters have come and gone through the years. It was never enough to get me back into it.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Maybe if it was Trevor, because she likes him better than Simon.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk. Our last topic of the week is We Happy Few. This is a game that's been floating around for quite a while.
Yeah, I played like a demo or something of it like 2 years ago. I mean, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, did this start as a Kickstarter thing?
It did.
Yeah.
It blew
okay.
I had forgotten. It completely blew my mind to be reminded that this game started as a Kickstarter game. And then think about this. The studio gets purchased by Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. You went from, we don't have enough money to make this game, people gave them the money to make a game, and then they were purchased for, like, I'm wondering if the studio is going to kick down some of the money to its Kickstarter folks for the purchase.
No, that's not how that works.
Yeah, funny how that doesn't work. If it were me, I would absolutely try to find a way to kick some money down to the people. At least try to give some money to the people who backed, like, hardcore.
I don't know if that's legal.
Why not? To just give somebody money?
Well, it'd be obvious why you were doing it. That would
It's
be.
still fine. It's just a gift. You can give a gift to anybody.
Companies don't really do that, though.
I would. If I built a game on Kickstarter that got my company purchased by Microsoft, I absolutely would give the top 10% of my backers money.
And then
And if I had to
and then the other
fly-
90% of the backers would burn you to the ground.
And if I had to fly to their house to hand them the money in cash so people couldn't trace it, so be it. But I mean, think about it. They just became millionaires on the backs of people who gave them
I
money.
don't think they became millionaires.
Yeah, they definitely bought
Well,
that
like
studio.
the 2 people that own it or something, but I don't think everybody who works on this game is a
No,
millionaire.
I'm not talking about every employee. I'm talking about like the founder of the studio.
Yeah, well, I'd be more inclined to give the employees the money before I gave the Kickstarter backers the money, but
I don't know. That's a dicey proposition, actually. I don't know who I would give the money to first.
there has to be some kind of legal thing about doing that. Like, that's...
It's only against the law if you get caught.
Yeah, well, I think we learned a lesson about that this week.
That's true. Good point. So anyway, this game had been in
The other
early
thing,
access.
of course, is like if now you made this, you did the Kickstarter, you made this, now you bought by Microsoft, now the heat is on.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is, now that I've spent a good chunk of time playing this game, I think Microsoft was insane for buying this studio. It's not bad. And in fact, I would say the first 3 hours, I really enjoyed it. That's when you're discovering the world and the plot and who you are as a character and all the gameplay systems. And when you're discovering all that stuff, this game is freaking awesome. Like, I think most people who buy this game, when they first start playing it, they're going to be very, very happy that they bought it. The problem is, after a while, after the discovery ends, and you just have to use the systems to make your way through the game, it starts to turn into almost annoying to play. And for those of you who don't know anything about it, it's set in an alternate 60s England. Essentially what's happened is that everyone in society was forced to, apparently the Nazis in Germany won the war, and everyone was forced to give their babies to the Nazis, and they've been taken away from them. So to keep people from committing suicide and thinking life isn't worth anything, they all take these drugs that's called joy. And when the game starts, you are in this messed up society, and you are a vetter of content. So essentially, you sit and you work at this terminal, and news articles come down into this like tube like it would have at the bank back in like the 80s or whatever. And you look at the piece of content, and you decide whether it needs to be censored or whether you're going to let it run. So you're essentially the censorship board. And what happens is a story comes up in your machine, and it's you and your brother. And you had forgotten, like everyone's forgotten their past. This drug like just basically wipes your brain and just makes you deliriously happy. And when you see the article of you and your brother, you remember that you had a brother. And then you can make the decision at that point whether you want to wipe it out or let the article stay out in circulation. And then you're presented with the idea of, do I want to take the drug? Because now you're in pain. Because you remember you had this brother that you loved. You have no idea where he is. You have no idea if he's alive or not. And you make the decision. You can make the decision to take the drug or not. Well, in my game, I decided not to take the drug. And the people around me discover that I did not take the drug. It all happens with that scene that we just saw where you think it's a piñata, or everyone thinks it's a piñata, but it's actually a real animal that you bash. And everyone's eating it, and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not on my drugs right now. That's a real freaking animal. And you freak out. And everybody sees you freak out, and they're like, oh, you're not taking your drugs. And they start running after you. And you escape. And that's how the whole game starts. And it is amazing. Like, again, the first few hours with this game are really, really incredible. The tone, the writing, the voice acting, the music, everything about it is so amazing. But then you settle in to actually playing the game, and that's where it starts to come up short. I'll say one thing. It is way better than it was when it hit early access. Way more polished. Like I could hardly play the early access version because the frame rate was so bad. There were so many glitches and bugs, and they've cleaned up a lot of that. But eventually, it's a survival game. So there's crafting. You have to constantly make sure that you're full of food and water. One thing I will say about it, though, is that the food and water won't kill you. So if you're thirsty or hungry, you don't die. But it affects other parts of the game. So you have a stamina bar that governs like everything in the game. It governs how much you can run. It governs how many punches you can throw or how many times you can swipe with your melee item. And that is governed by food and drink. And what's the other one? There's one other, maybe just sprint is governed by it as well. So they're not like deal breakers where if you let it go down, you're walking around like half a mile an hour and you can't fight or anything like that. It just nerfs you a little bit, I guess is the best way to put it. But you're constantly collecting trinkets. You're constantly crafting lock picks. Like you need lock picks constantly. So you're always trying to find bobby pins that you can craft into lock picks. There's risk and reward with the lock picks because sometimes you unlock a lock and there's like nothing there, which I think is really dirty. That's driven me crazy a couple different times in the game. But honestly, what ultimately happens is there's no guns. At least I haven't come across any guns yet. It's all melee combat. And eventually you get to the point where you can't win all the fights with melee combat and you're forced to use stealth. And the alerts on the enemies in this game are incredibly annoying. Like Metal Gear, we always kind of laughed at it because like you'd alert somebody, they come and look for you, and literally like 5 seconds later they give up. And you'd be like, I'm laying right here, bro. You can see me, and you gave up. Well, this is the exact opposite. They never give up. So if you get detected, you can try to fight your way out of it, which you can do if you have like 1 or 2 enemies. But eventually, like you get to parts in the game where, like for instance, your clothing is very important. What you wear, how you represent yourself can literally make an entire town attack you. Like a whole town, like 30 people like want to kill you. And when that stuff happens, and it happens pretty regularly, and you try to hide to get away from them, I've sat in a trash can literally for like 5 minutes. trying to wait out the enemies so they'll leave. They just won't.
And Shane plays games to escape.
Yeah, literally.
He doesn't want to do
literally
what he does in real life.
Escape. And again, this part of the game is awesome. This is in the beginning. Like, you've escaped and you've kind of found this new town or civilization, and you get thrown into a fight club. Not only do you get thrown into a fight club, that guy there is someone that you got fired earlier in your lives because he was a newspaper reporter who plagiarized you. Ha ha. Funny how that worked out. And he's bringing it up. He's like, "Oh, you got me sacked, mate, because you said I copied your article." And he's like, "Well, you did copy my article." And then you end up fighting him, and you can choose whether to use like a padded club, or you can choose a stick that'll kill the guy. So there are lots of decisions throughout the game, and I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know like ultimately if those all pay off in one way or another. But eventually, a lot of the game ends up coming down.
Even when fighting in arena, that guy looks extremely British.
Yeah, exactly. But ultimately, the game ends up being a lot of stealth because you're just not given the weapons that you need to take out like large groups of enemies. So you can use bottles to distract. You can throw bottles like in the corner of a room and they all run over. Then sometimes you can sneak up and kind of like assassinate them or put them to sleep or whatever. But for the most part, you end up getting overrun and you end up hiding. And that's when the game just turns into a big, boring pile of crap. I don't know. I'm about, I guess, 8 hours in. The other thing, too, is the game is split up into, like, chapters. And each chapter focuses on one person, which is something that I think is really cool. So you get to experience a character's, like, full arc, and then that chapter closes, and you start with another character as the main focus of the story. And that does kind of break it up and keep it from being so monotonous, at least story-wise. But, I don't know. I burned out on this game really quickly because ultimately its systems just don't hold up to scrutiny. And mostly it's just the stealth stuff, but unfortunately it's a big, big part of the game. So, I don't know. If you're rich and you can afford to buy a game and only enjoy it for 3 or 4 hours, then I would say get it. If you need more than that out of a purchase, then I would say steer clear.
Yeah, I haven't played this because it's just outside of that 2 years ago or whatever. I just the survival stuff doesn't appeal to me at all, and combine that with the stealth thing, and it's just like nah. So I will probably basically take a pass on this one, at least until it's like $10 maybe. Because I'm curious, but like not curious enough to throw that kind of money at it.
Another thing that drove me crazy about this game is the loading times are insane. Insane, Matt. Like literally, it's not, it looks like it's open world when you're watching this B-roll, but it's not. It's like load, give you a big chunk of territory, go to open a door, load, and literally some of the loading times were like 3 or 4 minutes long. I haven't seen loading this bad. And this game has been in development for forever. It's already been in early access. The loading is terrible.
So it's like No Man's Sky shader load time.
It's ridiculous, dude. What other notes did I have? Yes, his sprint and stamina are what's affected by eating and drinking. The skill trees, we just saw those. There's 3 of them. There's one for combat, one for stealth, one for super duper, which is just like a kind of a catch-all for the more powerful abilities. There's lots of lore and docs and stuff like that to read, so if you're into that type of stuff, and they're very well written and do provide a ton of insight into what's going on and kind of get you deeper into the story. Well, I did a great job. I just looked at my notes and I mentioned everything. So, yeah, I do not recommend it. The first 3 hours I spent with this game, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about this on GameFace. I'm gonna tell everyone they need to buy it, and then literally within a couple hours, I was like, oh no.
Sounds like everybody should just go watch The Prisoner instead.
It's a shame because the concept is really cool and really unique, but ultimately it has to be a video game that you have to enjoy playing. And again, I'm not a big survival game guy anyway. I think we've talked about it a lot on the show how neither one of us are huge survival folks as far as games are concerned. So maybe you get a little bit more enjoyment out of it than I did if you're into those types of games. If you're into Conan and stuff like that, maybe. But for me,
I just never quite got over my initial assumption that it was like a BioShock game.
Yeah. Well, it does have kind of that tone.
Yeah.
And you get that vibe. Again, the first few hours of it, you get that vibe. And you think it's building to something incredible. And then it settles into the gameplay loop and the groove of what the game actually is, and that's when you realize it's not BioShock. There's no, at least as far as I played, there's no projectile weapons in the game at all. It's all melee, hand-to-hand, or just using like bats and things like that, or tire irons, or like pipe conduit and stuff like that. So, interesting concept, flawed execution. In my opinion, huge mistake that Microsoft bought this studio. I don't know what. I mean, like you said, they probably didn't buy it for $100 million or anything crazy. Or maybe Microsoft feels like, okay, these guys have the tone
they can make
and the scenarios right.
They can get a game out the door. They just need maybe some guidance.
Or just rely on Microsoft for tech.
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly see, maybe, this game gets too far enough down the chain that, like, you can't just suddenly change it into something it's not. But, like, I can see why Microsoft would look at this and see the potential.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says they got to make the same game every time.
Look, I would love another game in this universe. I think it's amazing. Like, what they've crafted is great. It's just ultimately when they had to build a game around the concept, it just didn't turn out too well. So I would say, they'll listen to feedback, and the sequel could be way better, but in all honesty, this game was released into early access like a year and a half or 2 years ago, and they still didn't really get it to a place where I was enjoying playing it. So, I don't know, folks. Hopefully Microsoft didn't spend too much money, but
they got the money to spend.
Maybe Microsoft would have been smarter to just headhunt a couple of the guys who came up with sort of the concept and the tone of the game.
They need people they need developers.
I think that shows just how desperate Microsoft was to get developers.
Possible. But again, they had a concept and they got it to fruition from scratch, into something that I could look at and be fooled into thinking was a BioShock equivalent. I mean, that's not everybody can do that.
I agree, and I agree that's impressive, but I don't think it's impressive enough that a company like Microsoft buys the studio.
Microsoft needs studios.
Although,
Mars needs women.
If I had founded an indie studio, or I was working at an indie studio, or I was thinking about founding an indie studio, seeing what happened there gives you a little bit of hope.
But I mean, like, some of Microsoft's developer purchases here are definitely rolls of the dice, but I think that's what they need to do because they need the next great talent, and they need to not break the bank buying it.
They need to do something, and
so
it did. So
I can see why you would take a gamble on these guys. Like, we'll see what they come up with next.
Versus like the Dead Cells team or
Dead Cells team is cool, but like A, their game wasn't done yet, and B, Dead Cells team never gonna make a game that does something like if you manage to get another BioShock out of these people.
Well, they did build a 3D game as well.
Yeah.
So they're kind of a cut above just a typical indie developer.
They realized that art style. They did it. They just didn't do it in an exact method that interests me. But if I'm Microsoft and I see that, I'm like, well, these guys can get the work done. All they need is the IP.
Yeah.
And so then you start workshopping that with them and making it something that will have maybe a little more broad appeal, and you've got something, because that one way or the other, that initial trailer for that game sure made an impact.
It did
back in the day.
Absolutely.
And that's sometimes more important.
It's sad but true.
True.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So there
if
you
you're
go.
Microsoft, what you need is to get people excited about some shit.
Yeah.
And these guys, I think, have the ability to do that. We'll see if they can follow through in the end product.
I would agree with that because I was really excited in the first 3 hours of this game. Like, I started playing it and I was like, oh my god, this may be... I literally was thinking, like, am I playing like a Game of the Year candidate? Like, at first, like, that's the impression that it gives you. You're like, if they can keep this momentum going, this game's going to be amazing. And then...
Yeah, well, see, I think that keeping the momentum going thing, I think that's something you can teach in workshop.
I'd agree. Yeah, I'd
but
agree
you
with
you can't necessarily teach in workshop a beginning like that. Like that is you got to know how to do that.
Creativity cannot be taught.
No,
You
and that is
either
like,
have it or you don't. You
and
can
hey,
either come up with something out of nothing or you can't.
And hey, I would even say Irrational fell into the exact same trap with BioShock Infinite.
No, you're right.
First 3 hours of that game are amazing, and then it just sort of unravels.
Yeah. Funny what happens when you have to figure out a way to keep someone engaged for like 15 hours instead of a couple hours. But so there you go. We happy few. I think a few of you will be happy if you buy this game, but most won't.
But not we.
Yeah, but not we, not us we. All right, it's time for our trailer of the week, and as those of you who know who watch the show regularly, it's time to get your questions into the chat as well. There were tons of great trailers. We just showed you like 20 of them in the last couple hours, but we chose one that wasn't a part of our other discussion, and this is for a franchise that has been gone for a while, but a lot of people seem to love it. I've honestly never played it. Torchlight. Have you played the Torchlight games?
Yeah, I played Torchlight 1 and 2, yeah.
I've never played any of them. I was actually really surprised at how popular this trailer was on sifted.net. It did a ton of views and got a bunch of likes and comments and things like that.
Well, it's also because it's like the people who made Torchlight went out of business.
Right.
So
yeah.
the fact that it's back is nice.
Yeah.
And I mean, Torchlight, if I remember right, those were some of the guys that made the original Diablo.
They are. Yeah, absolutely.
And like it showed, especially in Torchlight 2. Torchlight 2 was a really good dungeon crawler.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically isometric action RPGs just like Diablo. And it looks like that's what we're getting here. Check out the debut trailer.
Here we stand, defending the walls of civilization. The strongest, the bravest, the best. But beyond those walls, there are vicious goblin hordes, ready to make us their next meal. The land and skies are filled with heartless scavengers, corrupted by ember. Massive infestations of mindless beasts, consuming everything in their path. Shambling, unearthed dead, clutching at the living. Unspeakable horrors from beyond the grave. They all outnumber us, and they've cornered us. But they've also underestimated us. And now, you are here. Remember, Torchlight! Free the frontiers!
There you go, the return of Torchlight.
Yep.
Something I know nothing about, other than its genre. I never played any of the Torchlight games.
Torchlight 2 is worth playing. You probably get it for like $4 or something now.
Let's see. I saw somebody in our chat who said they've been around since the Invisible Walls days. Thank you very much for checking us out, man. Appreciate it for your long-term support.
I think that was Commander Fett.
Yep, that's right. Thank you, Commander Fett. Thanks for the support all through the years. I appreciate it, brother. Let's see. Well, where's W. Matthews' question? We have to answer one of his every week. And here it is. First thing, called it. Monster Hunter World is the best Steam launch game of 2018 at 240K peak concurrence. For my question, what niche or weird game do you think more people should play? Me, Yakuza 0, because it just released on PC and just beat it.
I mean, I would also say Yakuza.
I don't look at those as niche and weird, though.
They're pretty weird.
I think of like games like Animal Leader and stuff like that as like weird, or like Katamari Damacy.
I mean, those are also weird, but in Yakuza, you win a chicken in a bowling tournament and keep him and call him Nugget. I mean, that's pretty weird. And
if I had a chicken, I would call him Nugget.
Yakuza 2 is a quest where you try to help a bunch of like mafia dudes, and then you accidentally find out that they're all role playing as babies.
Yeah.
In a secret room behind their storefront.
Those are like weird moments in otherwise mostly normal games. I'm talking about just games that are just whacked out weird from the get-go.
Yeah, but I mean,
Katamari Damacy to me is like the poster child.
Well, sure, but also the fact that he mentions Yakuza 0 means Yakuza counts, so I'm still going to say Yakuza because it's a game, it's a series that should be played more, and now it's on PC, and Yakuza 0 is the best game in the series, and B, the best first game to play to get into the series, so there's no reason not to. Also, it's cheap on PC.
Yeah. I would say any Katamari game. I would also say it's called Cubivore in the United States. It was called Animal Leader in Japan. And it's this crazy GameCube game where you play as an animal and then you attack other animals and then you kind of absorb parts of those animals from the animals that you... It's very, very weird.
And it can be yours for a mere $300 on eBay.
Is that how much it is?
Cubivore is one of the most expensive GameCube games.
Really?
On the secondary market, yes.
I did not know that. Well, then I guess you really can't play it then.
No.
Because I do not recommend paying $300 for the game. I have an import of that, actually. I have like the Japanese version of that game. I don't know how I ended up getting it. I didn't buy it, but it's in my collection for some reason. Those are two really weird games that are kind of fun to play. Or you could just play almost any Japanese game. Even Japanese games like Yakuza that aren't really meant to be weird end up being weird a lot of the times.
Yeah, I mean, if weird is the main criteria rather than good and lesser known, then just go play the Hatful Boyfriend game.
Yeah, there you go.
Where you date the pigeons. And one of the pigeons turns out to be a serial killer who may also be Satan.
Yeah. Let's see. Also, go at Sifted Games if you want to ask us a question. It's easier for us to pluck them out of the chat. Here's one from Vincent from Sifted. What's up, Vincent? Hope you're having a good night, brother. Do you think Red Dead Online makes launch? If not, do you think it hits this year?
I think it makes it in some form.
Yeah. I think it'll be just like GTA 5, where you get like bare bones at the beginning, and then they just start building on top of it, and next thing you know, it's just another juggernaut like GTA Online. But yeah, I think you have to have it there at launch because you want people to buy it knowing that it's there. Not that it's going to be there, that it's there. And granted, most people who buy Red Dead 2 are probably going to be playing the campaign for the first month or more that they have it. So it does give you maybe a little bit of wiggle room. But I think if you're going to put that on the box and you need that as a selling point, I think something needs to be there at launch. So yeah, I think it will be there at launch, and I think we'll get a trailer for it within the next few weeks, at least a rough idea, kind of like the dry-ass trailer we just got for the campaign. But I think we'll see that promoted in the next couple weeks. You got one, Matt?
Tomb Raiders 11 says there were some rumors that Microsoft is attempting to buy Obsidian Entertainment this week. What studio would you get Microsoft to purchase next if you could choose for them? I mean, Obsidian's a pretty good get. Especially if the other option is to let them slowly vanish.
Problem is, there's not a lot of really great independent studios left. Like, they're all getting snatched up by somebody.
Well,
Remedy.
That actually ties in where Major Tom 691 asks, with all the developer purchases and mergers that happened recently, what does it say about the long-term health of the industry? Because there's a philosophy that says mergers and consolidation generally happen when a market stops growing.
It's true. It is true.
Or when everybody's terrified.
But I think we're fortunate in that there is an independent scene.
Yeah.
And the way the tools work. And I also love the way that companies like Epic work with smaller studios where they're like, hey, use our engine for free. If you start making money off of it, just give us a little bit. And you don't get that in like film or any other entertainment medium. Like if you want to play, you got to pay. In video games, you could come up with a smash hit if you just got a group of 5 friends who are really skilled and you have a good idea. You don't need a lot of money. You just need a lot of human capital to make it happen. And so I don't see games ever getting to a point where it's just the whole industry owned by like 5 megacorps and it's stymieing innovation. I think innovation is what suffers the most when conglomerates sort of come about. And I don't think that'll ever happen with games just purely because of the indie game scene and the fact that middleware developers are working with indie folks to make sure that there's that steady stream of content and only get rewarded whenever it actually does well. So yeah, I think games are kind of an anomaly as far as entertainment is concerned in that way. I never did say a studio. Remedy. I mean, why didn't Microsoft buy Remedy?
Because they didn't like how Quantum Break performed.
I would buy Remedy. I mean, they're a very skilled developer that is out there for the taking right now. Gearbox, maybe? They make games that sell. I don't particularly like Gearbox's games, but it's hard to argue with the numbers.
What do they make that sells?
Well, what do they make, period? Borderlands.
They haven't made Borderlands in a long time.
Yeah, but one's coming.
Yeah, maybe, probably.
It's coming. They're not going to just bail on Borderlands.
I mean, Obsidian's a good pick.
It is a good pick.
I could maybe get behind Microsoft buying Telltale and whipping that into shape.
You'd be cornering the market on that style of game.
Aside from Don't Nod, yeah.
Yeah. But does that matter anymore? That genre's kind of become a bit irrelevant.
But you could make it relevant again by revamping their tech and making it something to be excited about again.
That's true.
That's what I mean.
That's true.
And there was another one that I was thinking of.
Well, I mean, Naughty Dog is independent, right? It's not owned by Sony.
I think they must have some deal with Sony.
Yeah.
So something must be there must be some contracts there.
That's what I'm guessing. Insomniac. Buy Insomniac.
Yeah.
Can you think of a better developer to buy than Insomniac?
No, but I also wouldn't want that to happen to Insomniac.
No, I wouldn't either, but they asked for a good
Does Sony
studio.
own Sucker Punch? Did they buy Sucker Punch? Or are they their own company? I can't remember.
I think they're independent still. Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad
I don't know. The
purchase
only
either.
reason I'd want Microsoft to buy any of these companies would generally be if I thought they were about to go out of business. And it's
Yeah.
like if the choice is that company ceases to exist or then they work under Microsoft, I'll work under Microsoft. But in general, I would prefer something like Obsidian to remain independent.
Johnny Hurricane is pointing out that GTA Online servers on day one were terrible, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if that happens with Red Dead Redemption 2 either.
Mm-hmm.
Although you would think Rockstar would have kind of learned its lesson by now, but I wouldn't be surprised if it hasn't, and there's problems on day one. But again, when you have that 60-hour campaign sitting there, people are just going to be like, whatever, I'll just play single player, and by the time I get done with that, the server should be fixed, and that's probably accurate. Yeah, here's Major Tom 691. Here's a thought for you. Why did Microsoft buy Insomniac? Yeah, it's a good question. Didn't want to spend the money for it, I guess.
Maybe they're not for sale.
Tomb Raider says Naughty Dog is owned by Sony. Yeah, a couple people said it. Naughty Dog wholly owned by Sony. Sucker Punch owned by Sony too. There you go. Any other questions, guys, before we go? Oh, here's one last one from Commander Fett, a fan from way back. Do you think Smash Ultimate will be the best-selling Switch game?
Like ever?
Yeah, I think he's saying like when it's all said and done.
I don't think it's gonna outsell Zelda and Mario. It might.
Wait, did Mario Kart already outsell Zelda and
Mario Kart? I don't know if it'll be. I mean, it'll be a big seller. I don't know.
I think Mario Kart usually is the best-selling game on every Nintendo platform.
It's usually a Mario of some form, yeah.
Yeah.
Was Mario Kart up to like 13 million or something like that?
It's over 10 million already, I know. Mm-hmm. And that's just a port
I mean, maybe
of,
like Lifetime, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if Smash Brothers is that.
I don't know. To answer your
that
question,
huge.
no. I don't think Smash Brothers will be that. I mean,
Pokemon Go might. Pokemon Let's Go might.
Yeah, it's possible.
I feel like Pokemon Let's Go is going to outsell Smash Brothers.
Probably. I think the original Pokemon game for Switch might outsell them all.
That's also possible.
Yeah, if it ends up being like really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it'll be Smash though. I love Nintendo's games, but I don't really like Smash Brothers, and there are others like me. So it's going to do very, very well. I think by the lifetime, it'll probably sell 15 million when it's all said and done. But I think you're going to need to sell more than that to be the best-selling Switch game.
Mm-hmm. Especially as more and more systems get sold and
Yep.
bigger and bigger games come out.
Absolutely.
It might be their most lucrative.
As far as profit?
If you factor in like later downloadable content and stuff.
I mean, look, Smash is 100% a profit deal, as Pac would say. It's a profit deal. They will probably, you're right, they will probably, as far as what they spent on development, well, the licenses might be a little steep, but what they spend on development versus what they make, it may be the most profitable of all Switch games. Yeah, it's possible. And Tosca says that Ted Price has said several times over the years that Insomniac is not for sale.
Yeah, that would have been that was my guess. Like, why would you sell Insomniac?
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody who has subscribed via Twitch Prime throughout the show. I see Johnny Hurricane did it. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Unfortunately, I missed all the other people who have done it, but I just want to thank you guys for doing that. If you're watching this on YouTube, there are directions down in the description that'll show you how to do it. It literally takes like a minute, and you can give us $2.50 every month. You do have to redo it every single month, which I think is really annoying. But once you've already linked your accounts, it literally takes 5 seconds to do it every month after you've done it the first time. So thanks to everybody who did it tonight. Thanks to everyone who's done it in the past. Everyone have a safe and great weekend. GameFace is up and out.